Daniel has also served on boards and committees, both nationally and internationally. He is a former director of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation, and also served as a member of the board of the National Sports Authority. He is past president of the Rotary Club of Southeast Nassau 2020-2021 and has served on the club's board of directors since 2017, currently serving in the role of director for community service. He is also the area coordinator for community service at the Rotary Club of the Bahamas. He has served as a member of the executive committee for years for 4 years and of various committees with the CFP, CON, CAF, CONCAF, and CISA. He served as an international instructor on CISA's Future Course Program, a sports administration and management program, as well as the People Unity Course Program, a marketing and communication program. These programs, Daniel conducted many around the world on behalf of people, including Libya, Botswana, Swaziland, New Zealand, St. Kitts and Nevis, Cayman Islands, and Trinidad and Tobago. More recently, he served as managing director for the IAAF World Relay Local Organizing Committee in 2014 and 2015, and as deputy CEO for the event in 2017, and as well as deputy for the Olympic Games for almost 2018. He was co-chair of the local organizing committee for the CONCAF Beach Soccer Championship 2020, conducted here in the Bahamas in early May. Graduated from the University of Charleston, West Virginia in 1989.
Then I'll say good morning again. Started? Video? Okay, good. The captivating and serene environment of our pristine, beautiful beaches of gentle, lapping waves and warm golden sand, together with our tranquil community and peace of mind as a people, can all be destroyed in the twinkle of an eye should a disaster impact our island. Disasters can cause catastrophic destruction and crippling financial loss. As a people, it's important to be prepared, to be ready. The Rotary Clubs of Nassau and Southeast Nassau are pleased to present our Disaster Preparedness webinar under the theme, From Readiness to Recovery, featuring a disaster simulation and a presentation on microbursts. We will begin this event with an opening prayer by Rotarian Ruth.
Let us pray. May we all stand, please? Almighty God and creator of all things, we give you thanks and praise for the assembling of persons gathered here today and those on the virtual stage. We ask, Heavenly Father, that your perfect will be done in our lives. Lead, guide, and protect all who participate in this event today. We thank you for our presenters, and may the information that is shared in this assembly be a source of knowledge, insight, and information to assist us in our daily lives. We also thank you for the food that we can share today. May it strengthen our bodies. Heavenly Father, everything that is done today, help us to do it with love and for your glory. Guide our thoughts, words, and actions, and help us to be a source of kindness and encouragement to others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rotarian Ruth from the Great Club of Southeast Nassau.
Rotary Bahamas Disaster Relief is a nonprofit arm of Rotary Bahamas and through the wider scope of Rotary International. And the overall purpose of the Rotary Bahamas Disaster Relief is, of course, to respond to those needs, the needs of those individuals communities that have suffered from the results of a disaster, not only a natural disaster, but also man-made disasters. And so our overall objective, our mission, is actually deeply rooted in the vision of Rotary, and that is essentially together we see a world where people unite to create a lasting change, not only globally, but in local communities and in ourselves. Our strength is in rebuilding. We're not just there for the short term, but over the long term. We essentially respond to the needs assessed by the authorities. So if there is a need in terms of a structural rebuild, for example, in terms of homes repair, we would focus on that. But there's not only a need for the structural or the physical rebuild. We are now turning our focus onto the well-being not only of individuals, but the family as a whole. People know Rotary. People who have benefited from the work of Rotary has talked about Rotary. But Rotary's strength is through our partnerships and collaboration, not only with communities, but with other NGOs. The first thing that comes to mind is the only failing that a Rotarian has, and that is they're human.
Good, and thank you. Of course, the beauty of Rotary is our ability to impact and affect our communities here and around the world. We're encouraged through service through self, but we're also encouraged to dream big. From that first meeting in 1905 with 4 members to now what's blossomed into over 1.2 million members around the world, Rotary has a significant impact. We move right into the introduction of our very first speaker, Mr. Jipko Johnson, the Disaster Area Coordinator for the Rotary Clubs of the Bahamas. Mr. Jipko Johnson, AKA Spring Break, and I found out what this meant before the meeting. I didn't want to call it unless I knew what it meant, its background, but I'm still not going to say. He is a professional electrical engineer and project manager with over 16 years experience. He's currently the project electrical engineer and construction manager for the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Overseas Buildings Operations, assigned to the new embassy compound here in Nassau. Mr. Johnson is an avid junkaneur and serves as assistant director on the steering committee team for the Genesis Warhawk Junkanoo organization. He's a past president of the Rotary Club of New Providence, the Quest Society Level 2, Paul Harris Fellow Society, and a sustaining member. He currently serves as the District 7020 Disaster Area Coordinator for the Bahamas. Please join me in welcoming District 7020 Disaster Chair Area Coordinator, Jipko Johnson, to bring greetings on behalf of the Disaster Committee of the Rotary Clubs of the Bahamas. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Lionel. Morning, everybody. Standing on the protocol that's already been established. I'm here, well, I was invited here to bring brief remarks, which is equivalent to about 12 slides in the PowerPoint presentation, as to my role and the role that Rotary clubs play in this disaster recovery cycle that goes from preparedness to recovery. So in the slide, the presentation today, we'll be speaking about the disaster management cycle, the district and club's responsibility in disaster management, give a brief overview of a typical disaster plan, and then we'll talk about the role of the disaster chair or the president-elect. The reason why I said president-elect is because preparedness normally starts from the previous year, meaning when you have the elections and the president-elect comes in, they should be looking to update any disaster plans or any disaster strategies that the clubs have. And then we'll end presentation. Okay, so the disaster management cycle. It's very interesting that the topic for the day is from readiness to recovery. You'll see that the cycle is divided into two parts. One, when you look at seeing how you can reduce your risk, and the next, where you look at the disaster recovery. For the most part, clubs will normally be involved from the preparedness side and from the rehabilitation and the reconstruction. We are not first responders. I always try to stress that to clubs. If you see something happening, we normally recommend that you call the competent authorities so that they can come and lend assistance. Obviously, in certain events, you might be the first person there. And if you are so trained, we normally recommend that you get involved from that perspective. But for the most part, you should just record and take notes as to what's happening. If it's something that you can help with, like moving a tree out somebody's way or something like that, yeah. But anything else, we like to leave it up to the competent authorities. And then when we're talking about the rehabilitation and reconstruction, that's where the Rotary Club disaster arm comes in. Like my chairman said before, Brian, he mentioned that they would normally get their directives from, say, NEMA or the Red Cross or somebody say, hey, we have an issue. Like, for instance, where we just did in Abaco, where there are some homes that we want to try to rebuild. They would then get involved and strategize with our partners from other Rotary districts, Rotary International, to see how best we could help in that. And that's where my role would come into play. I would then try to coordinate with the Rotary clubs in the Bahamas to see how best we could assist the Rotary disaster with any initiatives that they have. So what is a disaster? So a disaster is an event which is generally unpredicted. It happens in an instant. It's something that catches people unaware because it doesn't allow them any appropriate time to react. It also, and for the most part, when we think about Rotary, it affects a large number of people in which their normal lives have been disrupted, and it can lead to large devastation in terms of, well, we normally pray that it doesn't, but loss of life, and then in the most instances, loss of property. And then it leaves deep psycho-physiological, political, and economical after effects, which persists for a long time to come. We should be very familiar with this in the Bahamas. Most persons would have had people that would have been affected by Hurricane Dorian and others. So they would have known somebody that would have been either directly or indirectly affected. And we could see that years later, that they're still in a state where they still need assistance and they're still trying to rebuild their lives after that event. Classification of disasters. You have natural, man-made, human-induced. You have disasters that occurs in various forms. Like I said, some are predictable, unpredictable, and some are predictable. Some are annual and seasonal. In the Bahamas and most Caribbean states, we have hurricanes. The hurricane season starts from June 30th, June 1st. Thank you. I trying to get to the end to November 30th. You know, we're in November, and they lead meteorological, geological, economical environment. When you focus leading to a disaster, these areas normally you hear from them. Like we'll be hearing from NEMA and other competent authorities as to the disaster preparedness and whatever plans that they might have in place. Just highlight a few areas. Pandemics, we would have been in the last 3 to 4 years dealing with the coronavirus. This is something new that we would have added that should be considered in most disaster plans, pandemics, because as we would have known, it has a very wide and broad impact. The shutdowns of 21 and 22 always comes to mind in terms of how we had to get used to a new norm. And so your plans should always take in consideration these type of instances or occurrences. All right, now we're going to get into the district and club responsibilities in terms of the disaster management or cycle. So what the Rotary District 70-20 disaster plan will do. It will establish a Rotary disaster committee. If you look on the flyer, you will see Derek Haynes. He is the current disaster chair for Rotary District 70-20. So he would head that committee, and they would be responsible for coordinating disaster preparedness and response, both within and outside the district. They would provide a plan to assist Rotary Club members plan and prepare for that mitigation and survival and recovery. That's where me as a disaster area coordinator would come into play. They would also provide disaster preparedness and response training to Rotary Club disaster chairs. They provide a central clearinghouse for in-kind materials. Like I said before, we have partners and stakeholders who, when a disaster happens, they reach out to us and they always ask the question, how can we help? So a lot of this aid normally comes from the international community. And so there's normally a central area that we always like to set up for them to send this aid through. And for the most part, especially with the Caribbean countries, this would be through the disaster chair for the district. For the Bahamas, obviously, it would be through the Rotary Bahamas. And then they would receive requests for in-kind disaster relief materials from clubs. This here is an interesting point. Normally, we always tell clubs, look to your club first before you go out into your communities to assist. Because when you go out into the community, you want to be in a team. But if your team members are dealing with a disaster themselves, they wouldn't be able to lend an assistance. So we always try to tell people before you look for a project or an instance as to how you can help, let's make sure that the health and well-being of your club has been taken care of first, so that when they get out there, their minds can be focused on the task at hand. What is the Rotary Club continuing? You get a facilitate club pickup and delivery of the in-kind. They also, on behalf of Rotary International, receive all monetary donations. They set up and receive and process these donations, and then they coordinate the disbursement of those and assure the accountability of all those funds received. I'm sure that a lot of us would be familiar with when you get district grants or international grants, that there's a part of it in which you have to report how the funds would have been spent or where the funds would have went. And this aspect of it is where we cover that, because in Rotary, 100% that comes in is what we put out. So a lot of persons have that faith in us because we keep these records. And at any time, if anybody asks us, hey, I sent you $100, where did that go? We can literally pull up records to show them exactly where we spent those funds. And then they are sure decisions made on each of the funding requests, and funds are made available within 7 to 10 days. Got to keep in mind with this, the 7 to 10 days. This is an information that I got off of the district's disaster plan. I was supposed to have mentioned it because I don't think they should actually put a date stamp on that, because there are a lot of things that are a lot of factors that come into play, especially with trying to get monies transferred from places in which they themselves might be dealing with issues that could delay that 7 to 10 days. But for the most part, you normally would get the funds in a timely manner, is what I would think that they should say that. And then if facilitate donations to donor advised disaster refund of the Rotary Foundation, and coordinate publicity for the district relief efforts. You will see later in the presentation where you're encouraged to let people in the community know exactly what it is that you're doing, because in these type of events, positive news is always welcomed, especially when people are going through some troubling times. To see that help is there and help is coming is something that a lot of them can lean on and look to. So what are our clubs must do? So your club board, like I said, I mentioned the president-elect, they will read these materials and cooperate with the district and the Rotary District Disaster Committee in providing relief. They will use the forms provided. And if you're familiar with the Rotary websites, if you click on the disaster tab, normally our communique normally goes out when a disaster happens daily, telling them how the country is doing, how the clubs themselves are doing if a disaster would have happened. Once you fill out those forms, they will identify resources available, either within your community or that they might have that you could use. And they will make use of those resources available from the clearinghouse, including the disaster training when provided. Right before the COVID pandemic, I recall we put on a little chainsaw training exercise because before Dorian, well, most hurricanes, you'll find that there's a lot of trees that fall in certain persons' yards and in the roads. And we felt that it was something that didn't really need the individuals in the community waiting on the experts to come, because when NEMA and Ministry of Works them start to put out the workforces to clean those roads, that's a process. They have a list of those guys, and they have their areas divided into zones, but they normally go to the main arteries and they try to clear those up first, because the disaster response vehicles and whatnot need to get through. So you'll see that in your area, in your community, it might take some time before they would get to your area. It isn't that they're not coming, it's just that, like I say, they're trying to clean those main pathways of debris first. And so if you're in that area and somebody who has a chainsaw, we felt that it was something that someone should know how to use properly, because if you could cut the tree up, you could remove it, and you could get some relief in your area in terms of getting in and out, because water might be off. You might need to get to the local pumping area for water, for ice, and other stuff that your family needs in order to to sit out and to wait until the all clear. Well, you should only move during the all clear. Sorry, to wait until you could get to try to get some semblance of normalcy back in your life. All right. So what our clubs need to do, they need to establish a Rotary Club disaster committee. They need to set up under the community service. You need to appoint a chairperson and have at least 4 other community members. And then once you would have had that, normally, like I said before, you should communicate that information to the district, and so that they have a point of contact, so they know who to call, so they could say, all right, President Chantel, how's your club doing? And she would be able to then reach out to her disaster chair and get that information. So what you see here is just the contact information for disaster chair, Derek Haynes. That would be my contact information. And then you would see the contact information for the District Haiti Preparedness disaster chair. I think Haiti has the largest club, has the largest number of clubs for 70-20. And they're also an area, if you've been following for some time, they always seem to have some major disaster hitting that area. So I think the most recent one would have been that earthquake, and so we find that it was advantageous for them to have a disaster chair specifically assigned to that area. So disaster plans 101. There you go. I got control. I got you. This one, got you. This one. Getting told to speed it up. All right. So introduction. Identify the purpose. Identify your goals, and then you should have a scope that you want to apply throughout the impact. Identify hazards and others associated with your area. What we call an impact assessment. And then there's also checklists that you should have, your supply kit, the membership call down list. Like I said, if you reach out to your president, you'd be able to call a chair. And normally you would have 1 or 2 people assigned to call members to find out how they're doing. And then list of essentials, community emergency and relief organizations for the area. Just list a few: Red Cross, Salvation Army, shelters. And then might be some others in the area where you reside. And so we have some essential areas of responsibility. Obviously the club president, then the disaster chair, and then any other key roles. And so when you look at those and the responsibilities of essential positions, you see that the disaster chair would provide weather notifications, and the club president would be the person, he or she would then be the one who would activate the disaster call down and activate the plan on the advice of the disaster chair. Just jumped again. All right. And then you see some critical resources. I always tell people, try and take a survey of your club. You might be very surprised at who or what individuals actually reside within the club. Obviously, somebody who owns or operates some heavy equipment is always a useful person. Somebody who is close to the food stores and those stuff is also somebody that you would like to know, and building supplies. All right, the role in a disaster, as a disaster chair or president-elect, identify once again your disaster chairs, and then you have to start working on this plan. We normally recommend that by July 1, the plan should be updated to reflect your new year, and then that plan should be submitted. Also, we always try to tell persons to review this plan yearly and update it. And then if your club doesn't have a plan, we always try to recommend that you try and start one and then submit that plan no later than August 31st of the year. And like I said, show it off. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Area Coordinator Johnson. We do want to make this interactive, so we would afford an opportunity for 2 or 3 questions. If there are persons that are online, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We have someone monitoring that to make sure that we can get those questions asked. But if we have any questions for Area Coordinator Johnson?
It might be tired of hearing my voice.
None here in the room? Is there anything online? Is it? Nothing? Good. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
That's why you tired them out. Thank you very much.
I've also been instructed to make sure that we keep this bicycle cycling along very well. So to introduce our second presenter, we're going to ask past President Raquel Wallace, the Rotary Club of Nassau, to come forward and introduce Captain.
Good morning. Our second speaker today is Captain Stephen, very long name, Marcellus Russell. He was born in Nassau, New Providence, received his early education at Palmdale Primary, D.W. Davis, and is a graduate of R.M. Bailey Senior High School. Captain Russell began his career in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and entered the Royal Naval College as a midshipman in April of 1981. On completion of his basic military training, he served as a navigating officer, executive officer, and commanding officer of various small crafts. He received his commission as a sub-lieutenant in September of 1985. His most recent appointment at sea was as commanding officer of Her Majesty's, I'm not going to try and remember it, HMBS Bahamas flagship of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, May 2002 to November 2006. Captain Russell has served in various ashore appointments, which include training officer, sports officer, assistant squadron commanding officer, quadrant commanding officer, and acting commanding officer, HMBS Coral Harbor, commanding officer, commando squadron, and chief staff officer, basically every role. He also served as logistics officer and deputy coordinator of the Bahamas National Disaster Organization. He represented the Bahamas as a member of the board of directors of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Response Agency, CDERA, during the period of 1995 to 2008, and as a member of the now Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, Technical Advisory Committee during the period 2009 to present. He also served as the force's representative to the Bahamas National Drug Council. Captain Russell completed a series of professional development courses during his career. They include a patrol craft captain's course at the U.S. Naval Technical Training School in Panama, and a crew captain's course at the Canadian Coast Guard College, Sydney, Nova Scotia. In June of 1992, he graduated with a distinction from the U.S. Naval Staff College, Newport, Rhode Island. In April of 1997, he completed an International Defense Management course at the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School, Monterey, California. In November of the following year, he completed a peacekeeping course at the U.S. Naval Justice School in Newport, Rhode Island, basically a lifelong learner. In June of 1999, Captain Russell received a bachelor's degree in business administration with higher honors from the Sir John Douglas College, Nassau, Bahamas campus. In August of the following year, that would be 2000, he completed a disaster management course at the Cranfield University in the United Kingdom. In 2007, he completed a master's degree in resources management with the American Military University. Captain Russell is the recipient of the Royal Bahamas Defense Forces Long Service Medal and the Sea Demers Service Awards Silver Star 2011 and Gold Star of Merit 2015. In 2020, he was awarded a Paul Harris Fellow recognition from Rotary International. Basically a decorated man. Please join me in welcoming Captain Stephen Russell, Director of NEMA, to discuss how the Bahamas responds to disaster. Welcome, Captain Russell.
Madam, thank you very much, and good morning, hello. Greetings on behalf of our minister, Miles Rhoda, who is out of the office of the Prime Minister. The Minister of State, he has oversight for the disaster management mechanism in the Bahamas, even though he's in the office of the Prime Minister, and got some additional tasks now with social services. But he has oversight for the Ministry of Disaster Risk Management, that's what we call it now, in the, which is attached to the office of the Prime Minister. And he has a team that his main office is in Dockendale House just off the Esplanade. That's where he operates from. And NEMA and my team, we operate from our office on Gladstone Road. And I have a deputy director in terms of Gail Monka, and a team of about 20 persons on the staff there at NEMA's office on Gladstone Road. And the third component part of our disaster mechanism in the Bahamas is the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, which was formed right in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian in 2019. And the executive chair is Mr. Alex Storr, and his deputy is Mr. Sawyer. And we have Aaron Sargent, who's the managing director of the authority. And we also have a board of directors that has oversight for the operations of the authority. This is the current set of organization structure of the ministry, NEMA, and the Disaster Reconstruction Authority. Like I said, it came into being definitely after Hurricane Dorian. Again, Hurricane Dorian is that major storm that we have had to deal with. But prior to Hurricane Dorian, if you look back over the past 7 years, I'm looking at 2015, 2016, and 2017, and we went to 2019. And those 4 years in particular, we had some major hurricanes impacting various sectors of the Bahamas. In 2015, we had Hurricane Joaquin, which affected the islands in the southern Bahamas, central and southern Bahamas. In 2016, we had Hurricane Matthew, which really impacted New Providence, North Andros, and went into Bimini and West Grand Bahama area to a certain extent. And then Hurricane Irma in 2017 affected mainly the Ragged Island area. And they had, again, Hurricane Dorian, the islands in the extreme northwest Bahamas, Abaco and Grand Bahama in particular. Again, because of the frequency and intensity of these storms, the government saw it necessary to form the ministry, the government, they saw it necessary to form the ministry to look after the complete disaster cycle, as was mentioned, okay, from mitigation to repair and reconstruction. So as it is now, NEMA, we focus mainly on the mitigation to what they call initial recovery. So again, our task is to make sure that the country in all aspects are prepared for and prepared to respond to any form of man-made or natural disaster. So from mitigation, preparedness, response, relief, and we start the recovery process. And if the government of the Bahamas deems the area a disaster zone, as in the case we saw with Hurricane Dorian and Abaco in Grand Bahama, that area was declared a disaster zone, for those two areas. And we had the DRA now, their task is to operate. NEMA will step back and allow the DRA to have full carriage with the long-term recovery, medium and long-term reconstruction in the disaster zone. So that is how we operate now. And today, up to our 4th year post-Hurricane Dorian, the DRA is still working with the recovery and reconstruction area projects in Abaco and Grand Bahama. The key activities right now in Abaco and Grand Bahama, I visited the island but 2 weeks ago, Abaco in particular. There's still tons and tons of debris that they're still trying to sift through in Abaco in particular. There's some debris sites, piles and piles of debris. I'm quite sure you saw some initial footage of Hurricane Dorian and the immediate aftermath, where you had tons and tons of debris in the center of Marsh Harbor and some other areas. Cars destroyed, some structures actually destroyed, 20-foot containers, boats, all in the center of Marsh Harbor. And we had that migrant community, all that debris that was there in Marsh Harbor, and that was collected from all sectors of the islands, both Grand Bahama, but they were all brought into some debris staging sites. But the challenge was, we are not familiar with sifting and sorting debris. People just want stuff out of the yard, electrical, fridge, stoves, etc. So just move all the debris and take them to dump sites. Now the task is 4 years later, people are physically on the ground, sifting through, pulling metal from bush, wood, lumber, etc., and trying to sift those things so we can see how to best deal with them. So again, 4 years later, people are physically on the ground at the debris sites in Treasure Key and in other areas of Abaco, just sifting through the piles and trying to burn trash as they go. But this is the structure that we're working with at this time. The ministry and the minister and his permanent secretary and his core staff at the head office. Nima and my team, we deal with the initial part of the activities, and the DRA, they are pushing on with repairs and reconstruction and watching the recovery or restoration in the disaster zone, making sure water systems are coming back on as they should. Power systems are coming on as they should, okay? And making sure government facilities are being repaired or reconstructed as necessary so that normal operations can continue. As we speak now, quite a bit of government employees are still in trailers, mobile homes around the government complex in Abaco in particular because of the lack of adequate housing in the area. It takes some time to build some homes, so persons just have no idea to rebuild, okay? So there's still a challenge of persons, government employees, who may have came in from New Providence or elsewhere into work in Abaco, finding suitable living accommodations. So they're still in mobile trailers in some areas in Abaco. This is Nema's office on Gladstone Road, just south of Aquinas College, number 114, number 114. That's the address of just south of Aquinas College on Gladstone Road. This is our basic operation center on the inside, where we would activate for any form of man-made and natural disasters, which triggers bringing key agency members together to respond to an emergency. This is setup. We normally had more like a classroom U-type setup, but this our configuration as we were going through the pandemic period. When we assisted during the pandemic period, we had to provide some additional spacing in the operation center. Again, this is I'll set up our disaster management committee here in New Providence, and we try to replicate in all of our family islands where there's an administrator. Again, how it is right now we follow a Disaster Preparedness and Response Act, which was passed in 2006. Okay, well, that is going to be repealed shortly because a new act has been formed as we seek to develop bring on stream a new disaster reconstruction authority. Probably early in the new year. But the Disaster Preparedness Act makes it mandatory that every government and ministry make a liaison officer, assign a liaison officer to work with NEMA. And it's something that we've been doing over the past years. Every January, we write a note to all the heads of departments, PSs, asking or letting us know who is your liaison officer to NEMA for a given year. And we would normally have those names, all the names from probably 40 or more agencies by mid-February. And what we normally do, we meet every last Friday in the month from February to November. But in our first meeting, once we know who the persons are, we place them into a number of what we call subcommittees or emergency support function groupings. So again, we have some 14 subcommittees or emergency support function groupings. And the persons who come into us, we place them into one of them based on their natural functions. Again, police, the defense force, they will go in at communications or search and rescue, etc., or transport based on their natural functions in society. Social services, we'll put them in the area that deals with shelters and relief supply distributions. Red Cross, Salvation Army, again, we put them into certain areas. Baja, likewise, we put them with our search and rescue efforts. So we place persons into one of 14 emergency support functions or groupings based on their natural functions. And there's also a lead agency and a number of support agencies to help them in their respective communities. In the Family Islands, the Disaster Preparedness Act calls for disaster consultative committees. Every Family Island district where there is an administrator, it is he or her task to bring the key government heads of department and other agencies together to form the local committees in their respective jurisdictions. You have Abaco, Grand Bahama, and Illustra with 3 or 4 districts. So we expect, even though there may be a senior administrator, his task is also to make sure that West End Grand Bahama and East End Grand Bahama has a core team or disaster team in their respective islands or their districts. Because sometimes some islands can be cut off because of flood, etc. But teams must be able to, let's say West Grand Bahama, the teams in West Grand Bahama must be able to function in their area, or in East Grand Bahama, or in the case of Illustra, South Illustra, or North Illustra, or Central Illustra, okay? So wherever there are 2 or 3 administrators in an island, the larger ones, they're responsible for making sure they have their core disaster teams in place in the island. Again, I'd say they follow the same concept as we do here in New Providence with the 14 subcommittees. Again, the 14 of them, as mentioned here, from transport, communications, public works, information, mass care, relief supplies, health, urban search and rescue, maritime search and rescue, hazardous material, bioterrorism, food, tourism, the Ministry of Tourism needs tourism, and volunteers. Your group would come under the volunteer group with us, as it was Baja, the Red Cross and Salvation Army, and other faith-based ministries or groupings. They would join us under the volunteer umbrella, and then we see how whatever resources or skill sets they bring to the organization, and we further align you with one of the other agencies as necessary. Animal care number 14, we brought that on stream after Hurricane Joaquin. We discovered where quite a bit of animals in the Family Islands drowned, either Atkins and Crooked Island and Long Island, because of the extensive floods. Okay, and the idea was to bring animal care, working in collaboration with the Humane Society, environmental health, agriculture, marine resources, to encourage persons or teach people how to best care for their animals during major storms. Not tie them up with chain in the backyard. It's probably cheaper just to let them go, tie them and let them go if they're not really dangerous animals. Or if they're pit bulls or other vicious animals, you try and liaison with the Humane Society to find some means of securing them upon the approaching storm. But you don't necessarily want to release certain animals, but you don't want to keep them cooped up out on the outdoors, where your area is likely to be impacted by storm surge, etc., or flooding. Again, the key thing, like I said, the key thing about the 14 committees, and like I showed you a picture of NEMA's Operation Center, when we partially activate or fully activate based on a pending event, we have representatives from the 4 subcommittees in that one space. 14 representatives from the 14 subcommittees. And by simply communicating with one another, we can find out what the needs are. And one of any one of the 14 is the task with supporting one another and achieving an objective in a community. But having all the players sitting down together, it helps us tremendously. And we can at a liaise with any of the Family Islands likely to be impacted. Simply we have a representative from Family Island Administrators Office in our office, and they're liaising with the officers or the Family Island administrators in the respective islands accordingly. But that is our nerve center, the hub where all of our information comes in. We produce situation reports. We're able to advise our superiors, the government, in terms of the immediate needs of areas that have been impacted and how we can best prioritize channeling resources as necessary to those impacted areas. Okay, this is for a number of reasons. This is how the Bahamas has been basically sectioned off or placed in zones, and it serves a number of purposes. I think this came out of a tourism model and the Med Department working together. Okay, many years ago, when a sector of the Bahamas was impacted by a major storm, people were saying that the Bahamas was destroyed. No sense going there. Okay, but the idea is, let's look at the case of Hurricane Matthew in 2016. The island of Andros and New Providence were the ones mainly impacted. Therefore, all the other sections of the Bahamas were clear for persons to visit. In the case of Hurricane Dorian, just mainly islands in the extreme northwest Bahamas were impacted. So we tried to get this out to our tourism ministry, our embassies and missions abroad. These are the sections of the Bahamas that may have been impacted, not the entire Bahamas, okay? So other areas of the Bahamas would still be open for business. So this map here clearly outlines to them how they can best move, how we can move, or visitors have a desire to come to the Bahamas, which sections it's safe to come and operate in. Another reason for this particular map here, we are part of a regional insurance. We are part of a regional insurance grouping called the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the CRIF. Prior to Hurricane Matthew, the Bahamas was seen. The Bahamas was insured as one group of all the islands, and we've been that insurance for almost 10 years. And even though we were impacted by some severe hurricanes, like I said, Irma, Joaquin, Matthew, it never triggered a payoff from the insurance. So what we did, after Hurricane Irma, or after Hurricane Joaquin, the government came out of the insurance because we never got a payoff. And the next year, Hurricane Matthew came in 2016. And they said, Bahamas, if you had stayed in the insurance, you could have got $32 million. Because Nassau, the center of commerce, was really suffered some damages, and Western Grand Bahama and one or two of the islands. But if we had stayed in insurance that year, they said we would have gotten $32 million because that section of the Bahamas was impacted. So we went back into the insurance, but we divided the Bahamas into 4 zones, like I showed you earlier. The 4 zones. So what we've done now, we have 7 policies for the Bahamas. 3 for excessive rainfall. No, so 4 for excessive rainfall, and 3 for tropical cyclones. So this configuration is now for excessive rainfall. So if we have a major storm or have a storm that produces quite a bit of rain, and it triggers the threshold in any one of those sections there, we can get a payout for excessive rainfall. But in terms of the tropical cyclone, like I said, we have only three zones, probably the southern Bahamas, the central and northwest Bahamas, and extreme, okay, for tropical cyclones. And if any one of those sectors are impacted by a major tropical storm or hurricane, which triggers that insurance, we can get a payout for it. In the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, because the extreme northwest was impacted, because the extreme northwestern Bahamas was impacted. Okay, but we got a payout for tropical rain, tropical storm as well as excessive rainfall. We got a payment of $13.8 million within 10 days from the regional insurance grouping, just because that sector of the just the extreme northwest Bahamas was impacted by that particular storm. Okay, so we're still in the policy now. We renewed it in May of this year, and goes probably for a full year, but it covers throughout the hurricane season, again, for excessive rainfall or tropical cyclones. Again, I mentioned to you about NEMA's Operations Center on Gladstone Road, but all of our larger ministries, all those noted here, Defense Force, Police Force, BTC, BPL, all of those agencies have their own command centers or operation centers at their headquarters. And it's essential, for example, the police has about 30 or more stations throughout the Bahamas. I wouldn't want people calling into our operation center from 30 or more islands, or say 11 or 12 islands that are impacted. Let them report into their headquarters, their operation center. And somebody from their operation center call into NEMA and give us the key information. Likewise, health, with their clinics all around the Bahamas. I don't want people calling into NEMA's office from all the islands, but call into your operation center. And we have a liaison officer from health, the police force, defense force, and NEMA's office. So they can liaison with their EOC and get the pertinent information for us to help us develop our situation report. So that has helped us tremendously, having the links with various agencies and their operation centers, helping us with the information, sifting through the information that is needed to help us develop what I call our situation reports for informing our superiors or regional or international partners. Again, the hazards, the earlier presenter, he mentioned the hazards that they're mindful of, but these are the ones that we always focus on, including the pandemics, with hurricanes, tornadoes, aircraft mishaps, boating mishaps. When I say aircraft mishaps, you have over 30 or more airports around the Bahamas, and we often have aircraft taking off or landing. They can have major distress. Boating mishaps, again, we are a maritime nation. We have quite a number of freight boats or mail boats. We have quite a bit of well, our challenge in the past of migrant vessels coming through, not properly lit. They're colliding with our freight boats or other vessels. They can have mishaps. Tourism and their yachts and other boats. We've had some instances where 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting calls. A boat ran aground in the Exuma Keys, etc., or boats on fires, and they needed assistance. So we must have a plan of action to respond to boating mishaps. Likewise, floods, oil spills, mass crowd gatherings. Again, junk canoes, the political rallies, etc. Even the sporting events. This really came on board the mass crowd gathering after the Bahamas started to stage the IWF relays. Okay, you can imagine 15,000, 17,000 persons converging at the track and field stadium. We need to look at the plan of the stadium to make sure that a clear exit plan for persons, God forbid something happened in the stadium. How do we get people orderly out of the stadium in a timely manner, and not just out of the stadium, the surrounding parking lots, to make sure you have a orderly flow of exit traffic leaving the stadium, etc. Okay, I know one of the Labor Day marches, we had a mishap where we lost 4 ladies during that mishap. So again, mass crowd gatherings, your junk canoes, all those events, we make sure we have a plan of action in place to deal with certain things. The bushfires, community fires, again, just last week, one of the migrant villages, the shanty towns, fires in that areas, and we expect the appropriate agencies, the fire department, social services. We are supporting social services, provide material for accommodations for persons who go into either Ramfully home or other places for temporary shelters. So these are all the hazards we keep an eye on year round, and we plan for during peacetime. So in the event that something does occur, we can quickly respond to them as necessary. Again, I call this Hurricane Dorian was what we now refer to as our baseline storm here in the Bahamas, because of the size, the nature of that particular storm. So all of our assessments, all of our work plans, all of our activities from here on will be with that particular storm in mind. Our planning, our evacuations, etc., our sheltering programs, our feeding programs, all will be considered with that in mind. And we had some help from a number of persons. SEDEMA, that's the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. We are part, the Bahamas is a part of that grouping. Before the hurricane came, they sent technical teams from their headquarters in Barbados to work in NEMA's Operations Center. The IDB doing extensive work. The Pacific Disaster Center, that's our team down in partners down in Hawaii. They have done a comprehensive disaster preparedness baseline assessment of the Bahamas. We know the status, the conditions, the coping capacity of all of our islands in the Bahamas. And again, we are using all these tools, these instruments here. IDB doing extensive work for us now, helping us to prepare to launch our new disaster risk management authority, which we hope to come on stream hopefully early next year. A disaster risk management authority versus NEMA or the DRE. We all merging as one. That is the intended plan, okay? Like I said, but Hurricane Dorian is our baseline. So all of our activities from here on will be with that, how our operations went during Hurricane Dorian and how we look at the gaps and challenges and moving forward from there to strengthen our disaster preparedness and response mechanisms moving forward. Again, some key lessons learned coming to Hurricane Dorian, which helped us tremendously, that came through from these reports. Command and control. I want you to imagine the team in Grand Bahama and Abaco, who may be on the call, they understand quite well. You can imagine Abaco or Grand Bahama, storm surge up to 27 feet of water coming across your community. Your police officers, your social workers, your administrators, all of those persons are in some degree of distress. So how can we expect those persons impacted to just shake things off and try and coordinate activities in a disaster zone? So now the lesson to us now is, if one of our islands are impacted, we need to be able to move a team from outside into the disaster zone to assist with the coordinating of activities. So command and control post a disaster or post an impact on an area. We need to be able to move people in to provide some temporary relief to those persons who themselves were impacted and help with the coordination of activities on the ground. Pre-impact evacuations. We've done some evacuations before prior to Hurricane Joaquin in 2015. We evacuated some 2,000 more persons from islands in the southeastern Bahamas, Acklands and Crooked Island, Long Island, even Bimini. Using some 23 aircraft, we brought those persons up safely, and those who needed shelters, we sheltered them safely in the Kendall Geolysis Gymnasium. So pre-evacuation always preferred. We saw, even though evacuations orders were issued for Hurricane Dorian, some persons simply did not move. And not until the first part of the storm came, or hurricane came, then there was the eye of the storm. And we found thousands of persons leaving where they were when they saw the first part of the storm and started running into the administrator's office and the clinic in Abaco in particular, and overwhelmed those two facilities that the operators could not carry their functions as they should. So the idea is we're trying to refine our evacuations plan. The team from the Med Department, we have the tools, the models that can really tell us how an island or an area is going to be impacted as a result of an approaching storm. We know what category of storm produces which level of storm surge. So with those tools in mind, we have the mechanism, like I said, we have partnership with all our airline companies, shipping companies. We can move people as necessary. And timing is important. So we're looking at how we can refine that particular evacuation plan. Again, NGO coordination. We had 150 NGOs came into the Bahamas, all raring to go into Abaco and Grand Bahama to provide some degree of assistance. But it's essential for us to coordinate their activities, knowing who the players are coming into the country, what skill sets or resources they're bringing, and then trying to align them with one of our partner groupings. Like I told you, we have 14 subcommittees. NGOs coming in, we must try and align them with one of those agencies. So if you come in to deal with water matters, we put you with water and sewage, etc. If power and light, we put you with BPL. Okay. So whatever we found a British ship, a Dutch ship came in. So we tried to align them with our defense force and police officers. Okay. We had a team of police officers from the Eastern Caribbean came up. Again, we linked them with the police officers. So we know where they are and what they do and how they can best assist us in the aftermath of the disaster. Again, relief supply coordination, we had to really operate from some 13 warehouses, temporary warehouses, because of the tons and tons of relief supplies that came in. Solicited supplies and unsolicited supplies. People also use disasters just to get rid of some things. So we found ourselves having to sift through tons and tons of stuff. Some of them outdated medicine, some termite infested, etc., etc. Okay, a whole bunch of TV monitors or brackets nobody have use for. A whole trailer of left-footed shoes and stuff. These are the experiences we've had, but our team simply have to go through them and sift through them. Okay, we had to bring teams of volunteers together just to sift through them, palletize what is good, and then ship them to a disaster area. Okay, and that's so we're trying to find how do we best tell people these are the things that we need. Please don't send nothing else. And then and sometimes you find you have tons and tons of stuff on Florida warehouse on the dock waiting to come to the Bahamas. Okay, so I can tell a man bring those 10 containers, 40-foot containers of supplies, and when you open them, okay, or how can you tell? That means you're almost employing another team just to be on the Florida side, just to sift through some stuff. But then if you don't take this stuff, what happens? You're accumulating charges by just having goods in somebody's warehouse on the other side. So we're really trying to see how we can best let potential donors, these are what we need. If you give us other than what we need, it's going to cause a challenge for us somewhere along the line. So we're trying to again to refine our program for relief supplies coordination. And we've had a series of meetings. Our team has done some meetings with we're working with foreign affairs, social services, customs and immigration, etc., to help us ease the bottleneck and getting supplies and having certain things processed. Like you mentioned, medical evacuation, search and rescue. Again, Hurricane Dorian, again a major eye opener. In terms of the order priority, a major hurricane like Hurricane Dorian, search and rescue was our priority. The airports are down, so we only can rely on our Coast Guard partners with the helicopters. They can probably find a good clear path and land on helicopter and deal with medical evacuations. They brought them out of Grand Bahama or Abaco and took them into either brought them here to New Providence or elsewhere. Okay. At one point in time, we had to pause all flights going around on trying to get into Abaco, Grand Bahama. Over 1,000 flights were trying to get in at some point in time. So we had to bring teams from Civil Aviation Department and brought them into NEMA's office. And we only give them approval to go into the area based on which they were taking or into an area. And we gave the Coast Guard priority to bring those medical evacuation cases out of Grand Bahama, give them priority. Then eventually we had to move on to search and recovery. Okay, because at some point in time, we simply, we know bodies were trapped under debris, the piles of debris that were in Marshall or collapsed homes. So we had to bring in a team of cadaver dogs out of Canada, etc., to help us with the recovery, search for deceased persons in the area. Okay, Sheltering a major person. Again, imagine in the mud, Pigeon Peak, Center Marsh Harbor, thousands of persons are homeless. Government employees, their homes destroyed, rental properties, people in distress, and we had to find means of sheltering. That's why we had almost 7,000 persons evacuated from Abaco, the New Providence, Canada, Florida, Eleuthera, Andrews, etc. Just trying to get out of that disaster zone because conditions were deteriorating rapidly. All the infrastructure is gone, and health conditions were deteriorating as well. Okay, so these are all things, lessons that we learned. Relief supply distribution and debris management. I spoke to you about debris management 4 years later. We're still sifting through debris in Abaco in particular. Okay. So these are lessons, like I said, based on the assessments done by a number of our regional and international organizations, as well as just sit down and reflecting. These are some key lessons. So we are using these past experiences to help us further plan as we go into the future. So in terms of preparedness, once we're able to really home in on those areas, those lessons learned, it put us in a better position of preparedness moving forward. This is an example of we have some 147 shelters throughout the Bahamas. This is a donation from one of our donors, the United States Northern Command, one of the U.S. military groupings. A number of our shelters were in need of generators. So we started the process. I got the first 20 early this year. And we've sent 20 generators into 7 islands to be installed in 28 of our shelters. So this is an ongoing process. I'm still trying to seek out funding. When I first met Chantel Nesbitt, I planned an appeal with her to see how she could tap into this wonderful 1.8 million rotaries from around the world. The assistance of this program. I know the tremendous work. I know the tremendous work the Rotary did in Sweetens Key, those fabulous homes that they built after Hurricane Dorian. Some wonderful homes they built in Sweetens Key. So again, and I know the water program that you have in Grand Bahama, a wonderful water program. I'm trying to continue to see how we can replicate that in other areas of the Bahamas. Again, helping us preparing our communities for what may come in the future. I hope I have a few more. Again, I tell you again, our partners, U.S. Northern Command, this is a part of the $3.4 million gift package we got after Hurricane Dorian. The top left is our sheltering, what we call our sheltering program. We have some 40 of those tents, 40 10-man tents. You can accommodate some. We can go into the disaster community and set up 40 tents that can accommodate some 400 persons in total. Also, we have to the bottom left is a field kitchen. Bottom left and top right, that's a field kitchen. And we have some six of these 20-foot trailers here. Those are bathroom, showers, and toilets. So we can take them into a disaster zone. The tents to the top left, they are air conditioned, come with generators to keep them, provide light and power and air conditioning for them. So we can go into the disaster zone and allow teams to function. Like I said, Abaco, thousands came out. And there was a struggle, a challenge for finding accommodations, even for government employees. But with a major disaster, I can put this batch of stuff on the Defense Force vessel and get into the disaster zone. Once you can clear an area where there's a basketball court, we can quickly set up these 40 tents. Tents with cots, etc., and we can have temporary accommodation for at least 400 persons that are local workers or residents of the communities. So we can start the recovery process. Again, like I said, the challenge now, of course, because everybody came out. We had some delay in trying to find accommodations to get people back into the area to start clearing debris and start the recovery process. So this is something we have in our inventory moving forward. Warehousing, we have 3 warehouses and 4 warehouses. We have a warehouse in Readiness, 1 in Grand Bahama, and we have 2 in New Providence. These also were built by our partners, the United States Northern Command, Military Command, roughly $1.8 million, and they provide the equipment for us as well. This is the one I think in, well, the one is in New Providence, Grand Bahama, The one to the bottom right is New Providence. That's probably the same model in Grand Bahama and Readiness. We have those warehouses there just to service various sectors of the Bahamas as necessary to reduce the timeline and getting supplies to them. This all came out of when I was a boat captain several years ago. When hurricanes approaching, the Defense Force vessels we held to sea. And one year it took us around Cuba and come back. We came through Cuba and Haiti. And our first port of call was in Argo. But I had to come all the way back to Nassau to get supplies before I can go to the disaster area. But having the warehouses in those zones, the aim is to help us reduce the timeline in getting supplies to a disaster and stricken area. Again, some equipment I just got this year. Again, to further our logistics program to the U.S. Northern Command, again, that's another $700,000 worth of equipment, the truck and the 2 forklifts to support our logistics, our warehousing program, and transport, basically. I just got some other stuff just this week, some septic truck and some water truck. In our communities, we try to, if you know the makeup of the family island communities in particular, it's small communities. If you look at the Auckland, for example, you have Salina Point to the very extreme southern end of Auckland. They probably have a community of over 250 persons. Then you have some other areas Auckland, so Crocodile, smaller clusters. But what we've been trying to do in all of our family island communities, develop a small, what we call emergency response team, 12 to 18 persons, young adults, teenagers, young adults, who can assist in times of disasters in their communities or help prepare their communities for a pending disaster. Or with the basic skills, they can provide some basic life-saving operations or activities until the specialists or the key agencies arrive, whether it's your police or medical team arrive on the scene. But we try to make sure that the young persons having some skills. The challenge is our family islands. How look the time? Another half hour?
Well over time. Well
Another half hour.
Okay, let me try and wrap it up. But again, we try to, in all of our islands, we try to build capacity. We know the coping capacity in all of our islands. So we try to make sure that there's a core group that can support other than nurse, or can support the one police in certain islands, or the one nurse or one doctor, but a core team that can assist and do some things in the islands. Again, a part of the funding from the U.S. government, we have a rescue boats in all of our islands. So we are studying have been occurring in a number of islands. Try to equip all of our major islands with a rescue team that can deal with flood waters in the island. We had a case after Hurricane Joaquin where an area of Crooked Island was impassable for almost 6 weeks because the water had settled. Surge water from the storm came inland, and there was nowhere for it to go because there were ponds on both sides. Until we sent a truck with a well that can dig some wells, and dug 4 wells, and that's how the water was able to receive. But again, we make sure we have these rescue boats in the island. Again, wildland firefighting. This is born out of again Hurricane Joaquin experience. After major hurricane, as the bush began to get dry, you have fires popping up. One year I saw the police had to put a fire truck on the Defense Force boat to go to Crooked Island. So this is our mission. So we have now been developing teams in all of the islands with the basic firefighting apparatus. If you see a bushfire, let's extinguish it before it gets out of control. That is the proposed plan moving forward. And we have about 7 to 10 of these teams in various islands throughout the Bahamas at this time, particularly our family islands, where there's scarce resources. Likewise, through funding to the Japanese government, $1.8 million in 2016, we were able to install some 16 VHF radios with repeaters in communities throughout the family islands. Again, to allow for basic communication within the community among our transport and shelter teams during times of disaster. Again, I mentioned with SEDEMA, 19 countries, we all agree in principle that any one of our countries are impacted, and the government of the Bahamas makes requests for assistance. SEDEMA mechanism is obliged to respond to the Bahamas. Like I said, I've been serving with that agency for the past almost 20 more years. So I know the system and how to access that system for resources, etc. To come and assist the Bahamas. So they are there to help us. SEDIMA, 19 countries. We meet at least twice a year for our meetings. Our minister serves on the council. I serve as on the technical committee. Our permanent secretary serves on one of the other committees, the management committee of the council, SEDIMA. So we're deeply involved with that and know how to tap into the resources as necessary. Tap into the resources and make our resources available to others. Hurricane Maria in 2017, we sent our defense force vessels through Jamaica and down to Dominica with Marines and medical officers, etc., to assist them in the aftermath of that particular storm. Again, that's SEDIMA. Again, we have access to a number of international organizations, World Food Program, all the UN agencies came to the Bahamas as necessary after Hurricane Dorian. The matters first, the Red Cross, and like I mentioned, 150 NGOs. So the mechanisms are in place. The DRA, I spoke to you of the DRA. Their task is to coordinate activities once an area has been declared a disaster zone. Like I mentioned, the national, regional, and international partnership and mechanisms are in place. When I make these presentations to other gatherings, I stress the need for people at the household and community levels to make sure they have a family plan or community plan. The national system will kick in, but we cannot be guarding each of your houses from a storm. You need to have a family plan, an action plan. That's how we mainly stress to our people. And what we've been doing now, we've been using live stories from persons who would have gone through a traumatic event, a major storm, to let people know of the importance of preparing for. As a response mechanisms can come, all government agencies are obliged to respond. Health, their task is to restore their facilities as quickly as possible. Education, their task is to restore their schools. Police, defense force, restore your services. Port department, airport department, restore your services. And where you need assistance, you tap into government or regional partners. But at the home level, the community level, we stress that you need to make sure that you have a sound plan as to how you would deal with an emergency. Right on time, right?
Right on time, right on time, right on time. So please let's give presenter Captain Russell a hand, please. Thank you, Captain Russell. We know the importance of the service that NEMA provides to the country, especially in terms of disaster. Don't go yet. We've got a few questions for you. Are there any questions from the room? None, but we do have a few questions online. Question number one, good morning. What policy has been put in place to allow international NGOs to have quicker access to provide relief?
Okay, like I mentioned, 150 NGOs came into the Bahamas after Hurricane Dorian. What we have since done, we have anybody have a desire to come, they must register. We have a program that they can register to serve. And since then we have I mentioned we've been working in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Customs, and Immigration. Okay, having those persons in one place, that minimizes the timeline anybody has to go through and get into the Bahamas. Once you apply and say you want to do such and such, Customs, Immigration, you're all there. We can look at your goods, provide the duty-free exemption, waiver, etc. Persons come to do work in the Bahamas, again, Immigration, get them the clearance. And so the team is in place. The policy has been refined to mitigate against any challenges NGOs may have coming into the country.
Okay, good. Second question that we have is, does the Defense Force have a landing craft to get into islands where docks infrastructure may have been damaged?
Yes, the Defense Force has a roll-on vessel with they can land around, but again, they still need to be mindful of the water levels as they make the approach.
As they go in.
When we got that vessel several years ago as a part of a Sandy Bottom program, a number of our officers went around to various islands looking at where they can best land this vessel, drop the ramp to access to supplies to go ashore. Okay,
and a third question. You presented a listing of some of the equipment that has been provided and is being set up around the islands. I'll change the nature of this question. If somebody's asked, what is the maintenance program? But I'll ask, is there a maintenance program to service these equipment to make sure? I don't want you to
Yes.
break it down for
There
us.
is basically a maintenance program. Like I said,
Okay.
our hub of operation for our equipment is, we have a warehouse right at the Defense Force base.
Okay.
Okay, where the ship is. So we work in collaboration, Defense Force, the maintenance team as well to support us in our activities.
Okay, good. And then I think a final comment that we've seen online is coordination with Grand Bahama-based utility companies. The person suggested that they'd like to see an island-wide drill to ensure that that program functions.
Island-wide
In the
drill,
mining shed.
we working with our partners at the Pacific Disaster Center and the U.S. Northern Command, we have been conducting annual simulation exercises for the past 7 or more years.
Okay.
Okay, we can
Good.
probably I see a lady from Grand Bahama, Tammy Mitchell, was on the call earlier. She's
Might
one
have
of
been.
our coordinators up there. She can see how we can further integrate that particular grouping to play a
Okay.
more active role in our exercise coming forward for 2024.
Perfect. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Captain Russell. Good.
Powerful winds aren't the only deadly force during a hurricane. The greatest threat to life actually comes from the water in the form of storm surge. Storm surge is water from the ocean that is pushed toward the shore by the force of the winds swirling around the hurricane. This advancing surge combines with the normal tides and can increase the water level by 30 feet or more. Storm surge combined with waves can cause extensive damage. It can severely erode beaches and coastal highways. The pounding waves can take out boats and buildings. As the waters move inland, rivers and lakes may be affected and add to the rising flood levels. While we can't prevent storm surge, we do have a system that can warn us of the incoming threat. As a hurricane develops over the open ocean, forecasters at the National Hurricane Center closely monitor its path to evaluate the risk of a coastal strike. They use a computer model called SLOSH to predict storm surge heights. The model depends critically on the hurricane's track, intensity, and size. SLOSH uses water depths, land elevations, and barriers to the flow of water to compute surges as they move inland. This data helps determine which areas may need to be evacuated. When a hurricane slams our coast, it's important to be aware of all the dangers. As a reminder, emergency managers want us to run from the water and hide from the wind.
Good. Great. I'm sure by now you've recognized the value of this seminar and what it means to us, especially in the geographical area that we live in. We've got so much more to share with you today. So please join me in welcoming Rotarian Shakira, who will present our third speaker for the day.
Thank you, Lionel, for passing the baton, and good morning, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our next presenter, who is a master of navigating the unpredictable and challenging waters of disaster management. A Bahamas Department of Meteorology member for 35 years, our speaker is a proud 1984 graduate of the great Aaron Bailey High School. Jeffrey Green joined the department as a trainee meteorologist. This is a difficult word to say plenty times, but I'm gonna get it through. A meteorologist. No, a trainee meteorological, and I'm cold. Again, observer, and he worked his way through the ranks to chief meteorologist officer. He studied at the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology in St. James, Barbados, and received certificates in meteorological forecasting. This word is going to haunt me tonight. He completed his Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Science at Lynchburg University, Virginia. His training was further extended to him at the Miami National Hurricane Center and the Weather Prediction Center International Desk on tropical cyclones, numerical prediction models, and quantitative precipitation forecasting. He also has training in nowcasting techniques on severe convention weather, and where he also gained at the China Meteorological Administration Training Center, Beijing, China. Mr. Green is the national focal point of the WMO Integrated Global Observation Systems in the Bahamas and works as part of the team of the Quality Management System for the Bahamas Department of Meteorology. He also works along with the National Emergency Agency at the National Emergency Operations Center. He has completed numerous other certificate courses in the department with civil service and internationally. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jeffrey Green to lead us through a disaster simulation from preparation to recovery.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for that introduction. I hope that I can live up to that big introduction. All right, so I'm going to give you a disaster simulation of Dorian that is changed a bit. So this Dorian on steroids. You know, Dorian was already bad. I'm going to make it worse. All right. Before I go to the simulation, there are 5 types of tropical messages that the department is issued. The public weather forecast and the marine forecast will normally have a statement near the bottom that has a section that's called tropical weather outlook. The tropical weather outlook really is done during the hurricane season from June 1st to November 30th. And basically it states any possible development of any system that is in our area. So sometimes we do have storms that are outside of that June 1st. So we would mention that outside of that, but normally this is only put in there from June 1st to November 30th. But if there's something of interest, National Hurricane Center is watching, we will let you know that something is out there, to keep an eye out for it. Then we also have that development of that system. So if the system develops into a depression or a tropical storm or a hurricane, we put out a news item on it. It's not going to affect us, but we want people to know there's something out there that may affect us further down the line. So a week, 2 weeks later, you may have the same system in our neighborhood, and we want people to be aware of it. So that's why we basically put these information out there. So people, even though they're going about their business, and you can have an idea of what's happening around you in our neighborhood. So the next thing you have as when that storm is going to impact us. There's 3 types of warnings. First, we have the alert message, where we have a tropical storm or a hurricane that's going to be experienced in our area in the next 60 hours. That's 2.5 days. So anything that's about to be in our area, we have time to warn you, to let you know, hey, in 2.5 days, something could be near us or over us or next to us. You have an idea. So if the system continues to move in our direction, then we have to put out a watch message. And a watch message means that now that storm is possibly going to be in our area within the next 48 hours. So that's where you really should perk up and start to now make your preparation. Because you know, a watch means that that storm generally right on our doorstep. We really need to start making some preparations. If that storm's in the direction of your island or where you live, then we have to put out a warning. And that means that within 36 hours, you expect to be experiencing that weather. So that means that you should have already made most of your preparations. Your main thing now is to get indoors and be secure, basically, when you have a warning. Because a warning means that that weather is really upon you. So you should start doing what you need to do to be indoors. All the last minute stuff, you should be then focusing on, not just preparing for it. So your watch is when you should have been going out there, I have to get this, I have to get that. Your warning is when you basically do your last minute stuff. I have to pick up this and go indoors. So this is a disaster supply kit that I have here. Of course, this is just a general supply list you can get anywhere off the internet. So every one disaster kit will not be the same, all right? I have different needs from you, you have different needs from me. So when you put in your supply kit together, you think of the things that you would need for you and your general family, your pets, your elderly relatives, if you're gonna have them with you. That's how you look at it. Because if I'm preparing, I don't have an elderly person with me, I don't have to prepare like that, like you're preparing. So that's generally how you look at it. And then the main things you can focus on here is the water supply, the non-perishable goods, that type of stuff is stuff that you can prepare all through the year. You know, you don't have to go at, oh, a storm is coming, I'm gonna have to get all of this stuff. Try to do some of that through the year when it is in the hurricane season. And then when the hurricane season comes, you don't have to actually go and look for these stuff. Of course, we have a lot of wars happening around the world now, so you have to think in terms of that too. Maybe if I get this now, I won't have to worry about looking for it when everybody else is looking for it. So you may have a supply shortage, which is happening a lot around the world these days, especially with so many wars going on. And also the expense of these items is going up. So if you get something now, instead of waiting until 3 or 4 months down the road, it's probably going to be cheaper for you. All right, so now I'm going to get into the simulation. Let me see if I can get back. Okay.
You want us to see a screen? We drive the screen on right now. You could stop sharing, stop sharing. No, no, no.
So I'll have to stop sharing.
Yeah, stop sharing and then start it again.
Okay, so to make this easier, what I'll do, let me show the slides first, and then I will do the simulation. So that'll be easier.
Okay.
Okay, so the first item I was talking about will be the news item. So the news item is done when we have an actual storm form, either as a depression or as a tropical storm or as a hurricane. And once that is out there, we put a news item to let you know exactly where it is, how strong the system is, how it's moving, whether it's moving towards us, away from us. We still gonna let you know. So it's a general informational thing, like I told you before, that lets you know that there's something out there that may develop into something bigger and that it may affect us in the future, but not right now. The next one that we will get would be tropical storm. And once that develops and it's moving towards us, we have the alert message. So this message that I'm showing you is an alert message that basically is 60 hours before it's gonna have any impact on us. It's gonna let us know, again, everything that's happening with it, and that
the direction, the movement, possibilities of what's gonna happen before it reaches us. So again, this is gonna show you exactly where the storm is and tell you how it may impact us in the future, near future that is, because it's 60 hours out. So again, with this, you will have probably a picture showing the direction of the tropical storm movement and how that cone will affect us. After that, we will have another, this is a hurricane watch and warning. So basically, depending on where you are in the island of chains, if you're in the southeast and it's coming from that direction, you will have a warning. If you're in the central Bahamas, then you will have a watch, because remember, it goes by the length of time. So you have 36 hours, that's a warning. If you have 48 hours, you have a watch, right? So again, as the system moves towards us, we let you know where in the category and what you should be doing. So like I say, in the watch, you should be making all of your preparations to make sure when the warning comes, you just have to basically close your doors and be inside, all right? And here we go again. This is, again.
You wanna hit slideshow to show the slide? It's not showing as a slideshow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought when I went out, that's what happened. There we go. Sorry about that. When I went out, I didn't go back there. All right, so again, this is the simulation of Dorian that shows that we have a warning for the entire Bahamas, and I have all the islands listed, and then I give you basically the position. At 5 a.m., the center of Hurricane Dorsum was located near latitude 23.0 degrees north and longitude 75.0 degrees west. That's 7 miles south of Clarence, Long Island, 61 miles south-southeast of Georgetown, Exuma, 331 miles south-southeast of Nassau, New Providence, and 205 miles south-southeast of Freeport, Grand Bahama. And then it gives the direction of movement to the west-northwest at 9 miles an hour. And then it speaks about where it's intended to go. And that's based on the track that in the cone that is given. And then we have what the maximum wind speeds are. Now 150 miles an hour with higher gusts. And we have whether it's going to intensify, whether it's going to meander, whether it's going to decrease in speed. Then we let you know what to expect, basically, what's going to happen with the storm. So again, now the warnings will come underneath all of that information that was at the top, which will tell you how big the storm is, how much rainfall, how much surge is expected. So again, with Captain Nehmer and Captain Russell and Nehmer, we wanna basically now try to take this message and make it smaller. Try to give you the more important points from it instead of giving you this now. I mean, this stuff will be done, but try to narrow it down so you get what's more important to you out of the message. So that is something that's coming, and we're working on that right now to try and give you the simplest form of the message that will help you to know what's going on and how to prepare for it. Okay? But again, it gives you the rainfall amounts and whether we're gonna have swells and flooding and tornado activity and all of that stuff would be at the bottom there at this message. So I'm gonna come out now and then I'm going to come back in and give you the simulation without this slideshow. Okay, let's go here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now this is the storm that was made. Tropical depression Darcy forms on Sunday, the 15th of October at 5 a.m. I showed you the actual news item that was done for this. The system would start to move. I will play it. And as the system is out there again, all of the times, we have 4 times a day that we will be giving you a news item on this system, whether it's weakening or strengthening, whether it becomes a tropical storm or degenerates. So with this storm, it generates into a hurricane, as you can see, moves towards the Lesser Antilles, affects some of the islands down in that area. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So this system now affects the Barbados area, St. Lucia, moves back towards the San Juan, Puerto Rico area. And as you see, the system is becoming stronger as it moves towards the Greater Antilles now. So we now have a category 2 storm. Let me just stop it here 1 sec. It's moving too fast. Moving too fast. All right, there we go. Just before it hits San Juan, I think it became a category 3 storm. Let's look at it. All right, so here we go. This is San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's just to the south of San Juan. This became a category 3 storm. It had maximum sustained winds of 115 miles an hour. And movement was to the north-northwest at 8 miles an hour. So again, at this point, we already have a warning out for the Bahamas. I showed you the actual bulletin that we would have put out. So at this point, in fact, further, probably about 12 hours before this, we had put out a message saying that it's likely that this storm will be affecting the Southeast Bahamas. So again, at that point, the Southeast Bahamas would have been getting prepared for that storm to affect them. And it's based on how the movement of the storm would be. So when I put on the cone, you can see the cone is extended towards the Bahamas. So once we see the cone is extended, we're in the cone, it's likely that we will be impacted. The message goes out. We want you now to start to make all the preparations, because again, this is going to be 2 to 3 days for the smaller cone, and as you go further out, that would be 5 or more days that it goes out further. So now I'll leave the cone on. No, let me take the cone off, because it doesn't show it's clear with the cone on. Let me put on the wind. So this is showing you now, the blue would be your tropical storm force winds. The yellow would be your strong tropical storm force winds. And then the orange would be your hurricane force winds. So this is showing you how wide the wind field is. So as you move now, let's start to move it again. The storm affects Puerto Rico, then it affects Hispaniola, mainly the Dominican Republic side. Then, as we move on, you can see that the strong winds ahead of that is affecting Turks and Caicos Islands already. Then it starts to affect Inagua, then it moves on to Maguana, and again, it wobbles a bit. It doesn't go straight. It wobbles right around the Southeast Bahamas, and then it makes a turn, and again, it moves over northeast Inagua. So all of this time, people in New Providence saying, what's going on with the storm, and they want to know when the storm is going to reach them. So again, we would in our bulletin say, mainly we want to be talking to the people who are being affected first. So we would tell them what is happening, and then we would warn the people in New Providence and all the other islands that, hey, this system will be affecting you within, and that's why we have the warnings, within the next 24 hours, especially for the Central Bahamas, and the next 48 hours for the people in most likely the Northwest Bahamas. So people would know exactly what to do. So as we move the storm, again, we see now the storm moves into the Central Bahamas, but now it becomes a Category 4 hurricane. That's winds of 145 miles an hour. So again, the wind field is so large that it's covering still parts of the Southeast Bahamas, still part of the most all of the Central Bahamas, and still affecting the parts of the Northwest Bahamas like Southern Andros and Eleuthera, and just about to move into the New Providence area. So as it reaches New Providence, it's still a Category 4. So this would be the most disastrous storm we'll ever have, because it affected all of the islands and it's affecting the major islands, especially New Providence. This storm would have hit us directly, and with storm surge, with all of the flooding, with all of the winds that we will be getting. And check this out, it's hitting us, and the tropical storm force winds is already affecting Abaco, and it's still affecting parts of the Central Bahamas. So we would be in a whole heap of mess with this storm. So now it's a Category 5 storm. It went up to 165 miles an hour. You see, it's still affecting New Providence with those strong winds, and still now affecting the Berry Islands and Andros, Eleuthera, back to the Exoma Keys. Hopefully we never have a storm that does this. But again, the storm now increases to 180 miles an hour. Moving now towards the northwest at 3 miles an hour. So the storm again, it slowed down, it increased or strengthened itself, and now we have the majority of that strong wind right around Abaco and Grand Bahama. Finally, it's starting to move or pull away from us. But it's still very strong, Category 5 storm, 180 miles an hour. The storm gradually leaves us, and this would have been probably a storm that affected us for almost 3 to 4 days. Hopefully we never have something like that. Because remember with Dorian was almost 3 days that storm affected Abaco and Grand Bahama.
Stayed over there.
Right, it slowed down and didn't want to leave. So the storm eventually leaves us, and that is on Monday at 5 p.m., October the 30th. So again, the storm impacted every island, every key in the Bahamas. So that would be the worst scenario that we've ever had, because at least 1 or 2 islands would not be impacted in the past storms. You know, we had islands that got some wind, that got some rain, you know, some impact, but not, you know, the full impact of a storm like this. And that basically that's the end of my presentation. Any questions for me? I don't know if that was short or that was fast.
I was
We appreciate your brevity. It certainly helps us get back in line with what our schedule is. I don't, are there any questions from the floor? Or anyone here? Please.
Morning again. Someone was asking about the checklist. Are you able to share the checklist? I think the hurricane checklist for the audience.
Oh, again? Give me a sec, I guess, put it up again.
Yes, so you have it in slide form.
Right, we want to be able to share.
I'll tell you one of the,
Go to your website.
that was a note that I made. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a note that I made to ask if you could share that with the organizers of this event, so that I'm sure they'd be able to circulate it amongst our membership.
Okay, I can share that. I can share one. That is not a one that I would want to share because that one isn't based more for the Bahamas because they talk about cold clothes and stuff. But I can actually share one with you. Yeah, that's no problem.
Good. Thank you. Are there any other questions? And I don't think we have anything from any of our online participants, right?
Everybody's good? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate being here and be able to give a talk with you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Hey, like I said, Mr. Green's brevity will allow us to catch up, make up some significant time. We do have lunch break?
Yes, 10 minutes, I guess.
Yes, we do have a lunch break. Lunch has already been provided. I don't know if you got someone to coordinate that. It's here already. Okay, so lunch is already provided. It's in the room through the doors at the back. I've been told that we should take a 10-minute break. Nothing else.
Sorry, question just.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Who wants to do it? But Shakira. Okay.
There is a question online?
Yes.
Okay. The question is, has any flood and damage modeling being done for such a hurricane? So I'm guessing they're referring to Dory.
Okay, I have a mic. We are working, we have a new surge model that is being prepared through the National Hurricane Center that we hope to get by the end of this year, hopefully. We holding our fingers that it happens. Again, we did a surge models ourselves for for Grand Bahama and Eleuthera. We have those models already done, but this one would be for the entire Bahamas. And National Hurricane Center has done this for certain islands in the Caribbean. They have done it for Dominican Republic and Haiti, I think, and for Belize. I think there are a couple. But again, we are working because the models will have the surge. Also, it has the flooding conditions, which are modeled for like 100-year, 50-year flood, like that. So those type of things we're working with NEMA to have in place. And with this new authority, this is gonna bring everything together. So it won't be just Met Department. It won't be, like one or two people. It'll be like all of us trying to coordinate and plan for each island for when we have something as big as this happens. I hope that answers the question. Go ahead.
Our marshlands stuff, if we're filling in our marshlands, our wetlands, how is it gonna help us with flooding and all of that stuff?
Yeah, sorry.
If we're filling in, we're talking about sustainability and all of that, which is supposed to help us and reduce some of the impact of whether that's severe or whatever, with flooding and all that stuff. If we're filling in our wetland, and I know they're filling it in because my area, I live in Tropical Gardens in Key City next to me, marshland. Last summer, they started from the road, the marshlands are being filled in, where the airport is. There's a stop order in that area and someone's filling it in, but homes which are gonna flood when they dig the foundation, all you have is water, so we're filling in these marshlands. And about 3 years ago, we had flooding on JFK because the water don't have nowhere to run.
Yeah, that's a main problem that the authorities have to focus in on, because again, we know this happens. We know that people are filling it, and they're cutting down the hills, and then they're filling in these marshlands, and then they're selling it at exorbitant prices. We know this is happening, but again, people have to do their due diligence, because if you don't do your due diligence, you're gonna be in a place where you're gonna be paying for a house that you can't even live in.
How they acquired the land in the first place? If it's a flood? Hold on, that's
Nah.
another deal.
Nah, that's beyond my scope, right? But what I'm saying is, again, you have to do your due diligence, or the public has to do their due diligence, because if you just purchase things because it look good, then you could be in problems. You could be paying for something that had looked good before, but you won't be able to really live in. Because again, with the swampland, you're gonna have the foundation is not gonna be stable. And once the foundation goes, the house goes. Everything is gonna be going wrong with the house. Because again, being a building, that's not say where it is, but we have problems with the building. And it's because, just what you said, it's built basically on a swampland, and you have many issues because of that. So the thing is, do your due diligence. That's the only thing I can tell the public. Again, the authorities have to stop, like you say, stop people from doing it, because that's what they're doing. People, once they can get away with it, they will do it.
All right, good. Thank you very much. Great, thank you. We'll take a quick 10-minute break to allow you to take in your lunch, and then we will resume.
We are the oldest club in the Bahamas.
Hi, I'm Monique Palmisano, and I'm a weather enthusiast. I am a certified storm spotter from Sky One and also Spotter Network that are based in the USA. During the pandemic, I completed a few online classes with the basics for backyard meteorology, tsunami and storm surge, natural disasters, one ocean, one planet, climate change and climate solution. I would like for you to follow me on the very first Weather Enthusiast Rotary Fellowship via Facebook. The purpose of this fellowship is to share our passion about the weather events locally and internationally. Your posting can assist with disaster preparedness that could subsequently protect property and save lives. Sharing your photos and videos can assist with the data collection. Who can join? I'm glad you asked. It's open to all Rotarians, Rotaractors, and non-Rotarians who are enthusiastic about the weather. Together we will create long-lasting friendships while we fellowship, and there will also be some educational benefits as well. You don't have to be a meteorologist or a scientist to be a member of this fellowship. You can share your weather events from your location, even if it's a sunny day. We want to know what's going on in your area. To be a member, there is a small annual fee of $10, the proceeds of which will be donated to the Rotary Disaster Response Fund. So what are you waiting for? Join now. It's for a good cause. We alert the public just from your posts about water spouts, hurricane alerts, severe thunderstorm, etc. Let us know what the weather is like in your country. Why should you join? Well, it's simple. The information that you provide saves lives and provide crucial data that is truly needed for forecasters. To join, search Weather Enthusiast Rotary Fellowship on Facebook and click Join Group. So I'm calling on all weather enthusiast people or weather curious people to come and join me on this new fellowship. I'll see you via Facebook.
Good afternoon and welcome back to our weather webinar. We are going to begin with our fourth presenter, Mr. Robert A. Stewart. He will be presenting via the Zoom platform. Robert A. Stewart Jr. is a senior counsel in the law firm of Brown, Hay, and Stevens, which was founded by his great-great-grandfather in 1828. An estate planning attorney, he is a fellow of the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel, as well as a fellow of the American Bar Foundation. Bob, as he is affectionately called, has been designated as one of the top 100 downstate business lawyers in Illinois. Bob joined Rotary in 1975, was club president in 1983 to 84, and served as district governor in 1985 to 1986. He has chaired 2 zone institutes, served as delegate to 2 councils on legislation, information council, task force committee coordinator, International Assembly training leader, regional Rotary Foundation coordinator, and RI director. Robert served on RI's executive committee and was board liaison to the TRF trustees. He chaired the Constitution and Bylaws Committee and the Operations Review Committee. Additionally, he served on the Peace Center Major Gift Initiative and chaired the Atlanta Pre-Convention Peace Conference. Robert also chairs the Legal Committee for Rotary Leadership Institute. He has advised fund committees for disaster relief and currently chairs the Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group, along with being vice chair of the Rotary Action Group Chair Council. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage PRID Robert Stewart, Rotary's Disaster Network of Assistance Rotary Action Group.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today and to see so many people in attendance. Titles are wonderful, but really what counts is involvement and action. And we are all passionate, I believe, those who are online today, in regard to one area of concern, and that is what happens in our communities, to our families, and to our fellow community members when a disaster strikes. And there is no more important function than to become prepared. And when I was sitting on the board of Rotary International, I had been active at the international level, and I really felt I knew what Rotary was all about. And then I went down to New Orleans, and we were planning a convention there. And there was actually a convention committee in session, and we received a communication that a small little hurricane called Katrina was headed our way. And the committee adjourned. And for the next 2 years as director, and I was selected as director from zones, which are a consortium of districts. And my zone went from the southern half of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio down to the Gulf Coast. But for 2 years, I worked with Rotarians and Rotary clubs and districts from those zones that were impacted by Katrina. That was for 2 years. I went off the board and I continued to work with fellow Rotarians for the next 5 years on projects and programs in the long-term rebuilding along the Gulf Coast. Each of you have seen the devastating effects of hurricanes in your communities. And it's with that knowledge, that background, that we share the same passion and commitment. And I am really pleased that you're participating in this webinar. There are 25, 26 Rotary action groups, and these are a little different than the fellowships in that what we try and do is bring people together with expertise and assist in the programs and projects of our fellow Rotarians, assisting them. They include, I think you're probably aware of WashRag, Water and Sanitation, SRAG, which is Environmental Sustainability, and DNA RAG, which is the Disaster Network of Assistance. We all work together. A disaster happens, and it's just not Disaster Network of Assistance that's involved. It's water and sanitation, it's environmental, it's the health issues, economic development. We all have to work together, and those are various Rotary action groups that are working together. DNA RAG works to develop the interactive network of Rotarians, not just Rotarians, but Rotaractors and spouses, and those affiliated with Rotary who want to be involved. It's not required that you be a Rotarian. All geared towards assisting disaster preparedness, communication, and recovery on a worldwide basis. Our board is composed of individuals who have become close friends over our time working together on the Rotary Action Group efforts, from places like Nepal that had the earthquake in 2015 and who recently experienced another earthquake. And if they aren't fighting earthquakes, they're dealing with floods on a regular basis. Scotland, another individual who is active within our board. Brazil, Taiwan, Australia. We are truly global, and we are attempting to build the network beyond where we have it today. Our primary focus is on disaster preparedness, with an emphasis on communication. We utilize LinkedIn, we utilize Facebook, and other tools. Communicating what individuals and communities have experienced in the way of disasters, showing the photos of the results, the dramatic, catastrophic effects of disaster. But then we seek to communicate and receive from you, our fellow Rotarians, information on how can other Rotarians, the global network of 1.4 million individuals and their friends, how can we assist you? What are the receptacles for your financial needs? What are your projects? And we seek to utilize our website and our Facebook to communicate your needs to the rest of the Rotary world. And then lastly, we are building a network to assist clubs and districts with potential assistance on the long-term recovery issues. We are now working with what we call in Rotary the cadre, which are experts, not only in reviewing projects and making sure of their financial viability and making sure that they are completed when utilizing Rotary Foundation funds, completed to the satisfaction of those members of the cadre, knowing that their projects will be sustainable over the future. So our primary focus is on disaster preparedness. We've seen that need. I saw that need in Katrina. I saw that individual clubs were performing magnificent work, but nobody knew about them, and they were not coordinated with the districts. And Katrina stretched over several districts, and we needed coordination with those districts at the zone level. So I'm excited that you're involved with preparedness, and I would invite you to look at our website and consider the potential to become a member and become involved with what we call DNA, Disaster Network of Assistance. I was just watching the squib on the fellowship on weather. Our annual fee is $25, and we have a 5-year $100 membership. And we are seeking your assistance to become involved because we truly want to be global in nature. You have experiences. It doesn't have to be specific to your area from the standpoint of you deal with a lot of hurricanes and you've had earthquakes. Following Katrina, I worked with Barry Rassin on the Haiti earthquake relief, and I've seen your district disaster committee in action in regard to Dorian and other impacts. But we seek to have you become involved with us. We have over the years been very much involved, and our members have been very much involved with districts 70-20 and 70-30. DNA RAG has provided training each year for the clubs in 70-20 for disaster preparedness. And you have one individual who is an expert on providing that training. Michael Terrelong was online earlier this morning. He and Phil Lustig, both members of our board, have provided training throughout 70-20. In 2022, we did sessions for all club presidents and disasters chairs. And we also repeated the sessions which were originally in English in French for the Rotarians in Haiti. In 2021, DNA RAG did preparedness training for clubs, including Rotaract clubs in 70-20. Since 2015, individuals from DNA RAG have had a seat on the 70-20 disaster recovery team. During the period, we also have been able to utilize a vehicle that is established under the Internal Revenue Code, a tax code in the United States, and labeled a 501c3, which pertains to the section under the Internal Revenue Code. What this allows us to do is solicit funds or receive funds out of the United States, which are tax exempt when they're utilized. So if you have family members who have left the Bahamas and become residents or are residing within the United States, those individuals can receive tax credits for making contributions into a fund which we receive them, but we do not make the determination of where those funds go. The 70-20 Disaster Recovery Committee makes those determinations and directs us how those funds should be utilized. That can be a significant amount, and I believe that we have worked very, very closely with District 70-20 over the past several years, utilizing that fund to assist you and your clubs, your fellow Rotarians and fellow Rotary clubs. But it's not just limited to the Caribbean and the United States. DNA RAG is truly global, as I mentioned in regard to our board, and we are seeking to provide preparedness and training across the globe, tailored into each of the regions. And we are now establishing regional coordinators. We seek that our members become ambassadors of DNA RAG and our concepts and our passion to the rest of the district and your fellow Rotarians and clubs. That's why we feel so strongly that sessions and webinars like this are so important. After a disaster happens, you can't at that point in time pick up the gauntlet and say, I want to be involved. You have to have a relationship in place with governmental officials and others well in advance of the disaster happening, or you're going to be blocked from participating in effective recovery efforts. Another area that I can recall in Hurricane Katrina was that I had a close friend who drove down from the middle of the country down to the coast, and he sought to communicate with others. All the cell towers were out of commission. He found one place where he could operate his cell phone. So at that point in time, we started utilizing satellite phones. And it's pointed out to me right now that in the islands, not only can you utilize a satellite phone or something comparable, but you have a fellowship of amateur radio operators. And that can be a very, very effective tool to utilize in your efforts, not only at the subsequent to the disaster, but during the disaster itself, during the time of stress. So reach out, look at your facilities, look at who's available, but we compliment you in all of your actions today and the preparedness and the training that you will receive. We are there. We hope that you will look at us on the website and join our efforts. And if we can ever assist you at any point in time, all you have to do is reach out to us. You've got Michael Terralong right there, and Mike Stafford is online. I'm looking at him right now. There are other individuals that can assist. With that, I just compliment you. I've seen your district in action, and you are prepared for most items, and it's good to update yourself. And anything that we can do along the course, whether it's this year or next year, please reach out to us. We are there. And that basically concludes my comments. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to respond.
Yes, I have a question. Robert, Bob, is there any plan for a Ready conference?
We are working on that. What we have done recently, the DNA RAG assisted in resurrecting the zones 30 and 31 advisory committee, and we went through 3 different days of training sessions. And let me backtrack for those Mike is referring to. Ready, which stands for Rotarian Emergency Disaster Initiative, and we started that following Katrina, when I was not alone, when I saw and Barry Rassin saw and Don Mebus that we were not prepared. And so it was a one-day session where we did something similar to what you're doing today, and we brought in the experts. And yes, I believe that we will be resurrecting the Ready conferences along the Gulf Coast and Caribbean. And we got to the point where we extended it into California and Texas. And I think there was, was it Jamaica that we held one in? But we realized that those are pretty important. And if nothing else, it points the need for continued preparation and training and updating people on an annual basis. We found that too many districts, and we just did this with zones 30 and 31, too many districts, if they hadn't had a major disaster, forgot about it. And then they get hit and said, oh my gosh, we should have been on top of this in advance. Because if you don't prepare and make those relationships in advance, you're blocked from participating. So Mike, yes, I would say that we are going to be resurrecting the Ready. And the nice part was we were covering all of the US and the Caribbean area. And we even contemplated going the other direction and picking up South America and doing something along that line. So we would like to. And if you would like to participate in that, we would love to have you volunteer on that, Mike and others. Other questions?
Bob?
Mike, what have I forgotten?
Bob, thank you for your lovely address, and thank you for your leadership and encouragement and genuine friendship, and for DNA RAG for sweating with us through so many disasters that we'd rather not have had, from Irma, Maria, Dorian, Haiti, many of them, and for all you do in the world. Bob, could you help us in understanding where Rotary is today in terms of the foundation and the disaster grants, and how DNA RAG and the cadre help in that? Because that's
to me, Mike, the beauty of Rotary is that we have core principles and projects and so on, but we're willing to change and adapt. We may be a big ship and it may be difficult and take time, but we are willing to look and make changes. I can refer to the Peace program, the Peace Center program that initially started with graduate students, and realized that it wasn't just geared to the graduate students. People who were in the middle of their careers needed an opportunity. So they did it not only for a 2-year program, but they went to Shula Longhorn, which was an 8-week program where people could take off from the UN and get the training in regard to peace. When we get into disasters, Katrina was the first time we used what we called a donor advised fund. And because of my legal background, it was like the guy upstairs was guiding me. I put my name in for director and I didn't get it, and I sat out 2 years, and in the 2 years I sat out, I learned how to do donor advised funds. And all of a sudden I'm hit with Katrina, and I worked with Frank Devlin, who was a past president of Rotary International and very active with the trustees at that point, and we set up the first donor advised fund through the foundation. That allowed individuals to make contributions into a specific disaster fund. and we received several $1 million into the Katrina DAF. The beauty of it was that the funds were there. There were no administrative fees by the oversight committee. It was technically a tax deductible contribution. And we would receive applications and be able to determine those. The application would come in and we would circulate it to the committee, and then we would get on a telephone call and we would make tough decisions as to priorities and who is going to get what money. But within 5 days of receiving an application, the funds could go out, and they did go out. Now, at the end of Katrina and several $1 million being channeled out, basically as seed money for projects along the Gulf Coast, we had a little interest left over. And Katrina hit in 2005, and the Haiti earthquake came along in 2010. And Barry calls me and says, we can't set up a donor advised fund very quickly. And within an hour or two, we had Haiti earthquake relief. In other words, the donor advised fund committee turned it over for a Haiti earthquake. To me, that was a very successful method of response by Rotarians. But there were a couple of major circumstances where the funds weren't promptly administered. In other words, I talked about Katrina and serving for 2 years and then 5 years after that. And matter of fact, I'm still involved in a project down in Waveland in regard to Katrina. But those were in effect terminated by the foundation. They said no more of these. And our Rotary Foundation has seen that we are encountering more and more disasters. And it's not just natural disasters, it's man-made. Look at Ukraine. We're dealing with those. That's a major change in philosophy from the Rotary Foundation, which is RI has always said, we aren't the first responders. But Rotary clubs and Rotarians are there before a disaster, during a disaster, and after a disaster. And we recognize that, yes, individual Rotarians and clubs and districts do, in effect, participate as first responders. And that's what this preparation and training is all about. In my mind, a lot of it is first response, but it's also geared to phasing in to long-term rebuilding. I view, okay, the new disaster response grants, the $25,000, that to me replaces the donor advised funds. And that, in effect, is the initial funding for first response and immediate recovery. Global grants, major grants, can be utilized for the long-term rebuilding. And Katrina, we had such good relationships between the districts in the United States and the districts in the Caribbean and other areas that we were receiving global grants back in for Katrina relief. And that is the long-term rebuilding side. Now we're seeing a brand new type of response from the Rotary Foundation, and that is a fund allowing the trustee chair to establish, or the board of trustees to establish, funds for disasters of significance. In other words, similar to Ukraine and Turkey, where you have a community or area servicing over 1 million people, and you have global impact of a disaster. And there are 4 sets of criteria in regard to establishing that fund. And it's addressed to the chair. We're working right now, and there's a question as to whether it will qualify or not as to the situation in Acapulco. And it apparently may meet, I don't know. That's going to be a determination for the Rotary Foundation. That set of criteria will be posted, and that's one of the areas that DNA RAG can assist with. Is we've got materials on disaster response grants, and if you had a question, and those are pretty darn simple, they're straightforward. If you've dealt with a global grant, you go back to Evanston about 3 or 4 times to dot all the I's and cross the T's. Disaster response grant is a simple process that takes about a half hour, an hour at most, putting it together, submitting it, and within a matter of days, you're getting that $25,000 into the district coffers to help on initial response. And the other point on that is, if you complete that disaster response grant and you get the paperwork back into Evanston and it's within a 6-month period of time, I believe you can apply for a second or multiple disaster response grants. But you've got to turn the paperwork in. Okay. So we are changing, we are learning, we are changing, but that's the beauty of Rotary. And it starts with people just like you and me. Barry Rassin is an individual that will sit down at the kitchen table with you and discuss things. That's who you're dealing with. You're dealing with individuals just like you, and it's up to you to share your dreams and what you want to happen with them. It really does start at the bottom and flows up. It's not just from the top down. I got on my soapbox, Mike.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm sorry.
Just a question.
Question?
Yes, a question. Robert, just a
Donald?
question. Yes. Do you ever find that there may be occasions where there are disaster areas where you want to provide funding, but your funds are depleted to the point where you can't provide what you wish? And if so, what do you do in order to get those funds?
No matter how much money you have, it's never going to be enough to meet the needs of everyone. And the challenge was in building partnerships. When we had Katrina,
yes,
and I keep going back to that, we would provide seed money. Let me just give you an example. Waveland was basically the epicenter where the surge came in. It was wiped off. Large portions of Waveland were just completely gone. Bay St. Louis is right next to Waveland. I mean, you could say it's the same community. What we provided was we put $100,000 into an engineering study in regard to rebuilding a community center on the highest piece of ground in Bay St. Louis. But what most people didn't realize in regard to the community center, it has a separate kitchen, it has shower facilities, and it can house people in a disaster. The reason why I bring this up, it was a multi-million-dollar convention center. We put the first 100 into it to develop the engineering study and establish the credibility of the project. Clinton Bush funded a significant portion of that community center. A global grant out of your district went into that community center. It's partnerships, it's relationships. We can't do it all. We don't have all the expertise. We don't have all the finances, but there are funds out there that we can reach. And that's another reason why I think communication through DNA RAG can render unbelievable assistance in projects in the Bahamas or elsewhere. When Katrina hit, I received calls from the United Kingdom, from Japan, saying we have money to channel and assist. But you've got to communicate it. I hope that answers some.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good. I'd like to thank PRID Bob for his presentation and for fielding those questions for us. We've got to move this along, so we've got an invite back Rotarian Ruth to introduce our next speaker for the day.
Derek was asked to join the Caribbean and Tropical Islands Hurricane Committee, tasked with coordinating multinational training, planning, response, and logistics for disaster management and recovery in the region. Whilst serving as Chief Superintendent, Derek was charged with drafting the Cayman Islands National Crisis Management Plan for the Cayman Islands government, coordinating multiple government agencies and preparing training and responding to crisis on a national level. He has coordinated crisis management exercises in Cayman, Anguilla, delivered presentations at the National Hurricane Conference in the USA, and lectured at the police training schools in Jamaica, Barbados, and the wider Caribbean region. In 2004, Derek took command of the Royal Cayman Islands Police on the approach of the catastrophic Category 5 Hurricane Ivan, and led that body throughout the emergency. He oversaw and directed national and international operations to preserve and save lives, maintain public order, and ensure the safety of national key assets. Derek received the Queen's Police Medal, QPM, for his leadership and actions during Hurricane Ivan. His further professionalism and dedication have been acknowledged on 3 separate occasions by Her Majesty, the Queen, in her birthday honors, including appointment as a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, MBE, in 2015. Derek became a Rotarian in 2000 as a member of the Rotary Club of Grand Cayman. He is past president and now serves as the disaster chair for District 7020. Ladies and gentlemen, Rotarians everywhere, please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage District Chair Derek Haynes to discuss how District 7020 responds to disasters.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks very much to immediate past President Chantal for inviting me to join this webinar. May I also say thank you to Michael Terralonghi, who is the immediate district chair and has more than kindly agreed to be my deputy for this year. So you'll be pleased to know that I've got a wise old head keeping me in the right direction. So thanks for that, Mike. And thanks to all the presenters today for the necessary coverage of the important oversight of disaster management. The theme of preparedness and readiness in order to ensure a positive response is vital. Our last severe test in the Cayman Islands was, as just been mentioned, in 2004 with Hurricane Ivan. Unfortunately, because of my position with the police and having to take command of that, I was unable to assist with the Rotary clubs, and now we have 4 on the island of Grand Cayman in their activities. But I know, obviously, that they were well involved in what was necessary. So whilst it's fortunate that it is 19 years now since we were hit in such a bad way, unfortunately, the dangers from complacency come to the fore and rears its ugly head. Because a lot of people now on the island, and there's only just over 70,000 of us, but quite a number of those have arrived since Ivan and don't understand the problems that go with a serious storm or any other disaster for that matter. So it's more than important, as you've been doing today, to hammer home the messages that you bring. Say thanks to all the presenters for doing that. My job as the disaster chair for the district is to liaise obviously with all of the Rotary clubs in the district and be the link with the Caribbean regional disaster management, should that be required per any of our clubs. I'm serving on the Haiti earthquake together with Mike and others, and I've experienced how beneficial Rotary is to that hard-hit country, and the difficulties, and they are huge, in supplying aid because of the lawless activities in that country. For instance, trying to get supplies out of the ports and then delivered to where they're required is more than difficult because of armed gangs that will stop and steal the stuff that's being delivered. Thanks to the Rotary clubs in the Bahamas and elsewhere in the district for supplying me with the copies of your disaster management plans. And I'm obviously keeping a library of those and supplying District Governor David with copies of all of those as well. So that's been really nice for me to not have to chase around to get those. And so I am very grateful for that. I'll also be grateful, though, if you consider reviewing your plans by the end of April of each year. That will save any rushing around as the hurricane season starts on June the 1st. And it's a good time for you and timely for it to be done by then. And I certainly review, I do some consultancy on disaster management, and I try to do that by the end of April, because if you leave things to the last moment, as we all know, then something will happen and everything then gets out of sorts. To close, on a planning meeting earlier this week, I was asked if I considered the dangers from hurricanes in November to be less to worry about, and I paraphrased that, and apologies to Mike if I misunderstood what you're asking, but that's what I understood from it. I did answer no, and by coincidence, there is now a large disturbance in central of the Caribbean, and it's likely to form into a tropical storm at the moment, with winds up to about 60 miles an hour, and more likely to go south of us in Cayman into Central America again. So, but even so, at this time of the year, that's the sort of area where they start to develop, and also along that Central American coast. And that gives certainly us in the Cayman Islands, and certainly for Michael in Jamaica, a lot less time usually than what you would get when you're watching things coming across the Atlantic. It brings you down to maybe a couple of days at the most if you're lucky. So bear that in mind. Don't think, oh, it's been calm for a few days, so it's all over now, because it certainly isn't. And we must stay forever alert and vigilant. Short address, but I didn't want to go on too long, because I feel that our presenters thus far have done a superb job, and I don't want to be repeating what they're doing. But thanks very much for everybody listening, and to everybody for joining in this most important feature of Rotarian work.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Derek. I think we've got an opportunity to take one or two questions for him, if we have any, either virtually or in person. None? No, good. And we will continue to move right along and.
Excellent.
invite-
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes. Sure. We will invite once again, past President Nikita, so not people, you want to do the video? So come on. Let's get the next presentation, we show. We will invite, I don't say.
Not past president.
I was doing. I was speaking it into existence.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so acting director of the Bahamas Department of Meteorology, Jeffrey Simmons, is employed with the Bahamas Department of Meteorology as acting director. Mr. Simmons holds an undergraduate degree in meteorology and mathematics and a graduate degree in oceanography with emphasis on coastal zone management. He has more than 44 years experience in tropical meteorology forecasting with emphasis on hurricane tracking and forecasting. He has also been actively involved with climate change for more than 25 years, contributing to many documents on global climate change issued by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Mr. Simmons is the Bahamas permanent representative to the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, since November of 2022, and the Bahamas focal point to the Intergovernmental Panel on Change, IPCC, since January 2018. Please join me in welcoming Acting Director Jeffrey Simmons to discuss making sense of microburst.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to discuss this topic. This is something that we've been seeing a lot of our activities in terms of people. We have this term. We have a little incident similar to this. You're quick to jump in the blame tornadoes for it, which is not quite almost in most cases not the case. But it's some activity that we see a lot of. And so it's a pleasure, to more or less give people some understanding of what we are dealing with. And, sometimes when it happened, and we would get out, I would say, no, it wasn't really a tornado, and they would give me all of their thing. And then, so, But so let's talk about it, because we in the Department of Meteorology, we issue severe weather warnings on a regular, particularly during the summer months when we're going to have a lot of activities. Great. And we continue to slide. Yeah. And we use this term that a lot of you would become familiar with. We ask people to be on the lookout for tornadic activities. Okay, and we deliberately use that term because we do not want to say tornado. But these are sort of tornadic in nature, what we are talking about. Now, where do I point to?
Yes, so you see the arrows on it?
Yes.
So press, no, see the other arrow.
Pointed at the computer. Pointed at the computer. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about tornadoes and what they are. What kind of definition? We have definitions in our throughout meteorology. And most of the definitions I'll be using really will be coming from the United States National Weather Service. And we are a part of the Region 4 of the World Met Organization, which happen to include the United States, which is all of North America, United States and Canada, and the entire Caribbean and Central America. So a tornado really is a violently rotating column of air actually touching the ground. So what you see sometimes, you see with a funnel cloud coming down at the beginning. And once that cloud actually touched the ground is what we could define as a tornado.
What we see a lot of also around here, most of these funnel clouds really, when they touch down, don't really touch down on the ground, they actually touch down on the water. That is when it is then called water spout. And it's circular in motion. You have this counterclockwise rotation going on as it touches down. Now, when you're talking about a real tornado, just to give you an idea of what a tornado can really do, it causes fatalities and can devastate a neighborhood within seconds. Winds can be up to 300 miles per hour. So we think hurricanes are devastating. Try these, you get very little to no notice at all. And we're coming out with this kind of activity. And really, when you look at a mature tornado, it has a path about a mile wide. And it can actually last long enough to travel for up to 50 miles. So if we're talking about a mature tornado really touching down, it can really run through this island in a matter of minutes. Okay, and then continue on. So and the devastation is really, we have heard about a lot of it going on in the United States. We don't really see those kind of activities here, simply because we don't get that sort of energy being created, because all of this is energy. Okay, we have to know that. And actually, it's heat energy, and you have this broad-based heat. So that's why you see them only in certain places, like especially in the United States, where it is not very mountainous. And so that summer heat actually is building, and you get that kind of energy being stored up and moving along. But nevertheless, we still see a few little things going on around you. We see a lot of water spouts. Computers is leaving us. Okay, so what I did, like we have in hurricanes, we have the categories 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5. Also the same thing with tornadoes. So if you look at the EF0, which have wind speed up to 65 to 85 and so. So every now and again, we see something similar around here. And yes, we do see every now and again, we will see a tornado touching down somewhere around here. But usually it would be of the nature of more or less a zero. Okay, and even that, when you look at the wind speeds involved in that 65 to 85 miles per hour, that's a lot. So those kind of things are really, these can actually peel the surface of the roads and stuff, just some roof damage and things you'll see coming out of those things. But then it gets more devastating as we go all the way down through 1 through 5. So 1 through 5 is something I can't say that we have seen anywhere around. It's simply because we don't have the land mass to generate that amount of heat energy to really build those kind of convective clouds to cause this kind of activity to be going on. But what we commonly see around here, what we call a downburst. Okay, sometimes you get these terms sort of mixed up. So we have to get the terms sort of ironed. So what happened is that while a tornado is something, a funnel-shaped cloud that actually descends from the base of a cloud with a circular counterclockwise circular motion, a downburst is something that is really just a gust of storm wind that actually just make a sudden descent to the surface from the cloud, from the base of the cumulonimbus cloud or thunderstorm clouds. So they can produce gusts damaging winds up to about 100 miles per hour. And what happened is that the damage now, and this is the way we always can define the wave, or in the aftermath, you see exactly what happens, because what it does is that it's a sudden gust that comes down and then it spreads out. So what it does is that it actually, lay everything out in the same direction. So if you watch the trees or buildings or whatever is damaged and see how they would lay after the damage. If you see something laying like a perfect thing from the center, then you know that that was just a downburst. Whereas a tornado is actually spinning, so you see things twisted all around the place and things like that. And that's how you can tell the footprint of a tornado from downburst. Of course, these can be strong, they can be life-threatening, they can damage property, and they can be very dangerous. I just know we're going to talk some more about that at the end of this presentation. of how it can actually be a significant threat to aviation. And that is one of the major issues we have with them. In most cases, that's the major issue we have with downbursts, is threat to the aviation industry. So there are two types of downbursts. We have a macro macro burst, which is actually about, it's greater than 2.5 miles in diameter. And the duration usually lasts about 30 minutes. Then we have a microburst. That is the common thing we see around here, where you have the size is less than 2.5 miles in diameter, and it's rather brief. It usually lasts for about 30 minutes, if that long, but it can last for a much shorter period of time. So the microburst is something that we see around here. So when we see these damage, we notice that the damage from them, what we would see, is usually confined to this small area, just about 2.5 miles or so in diameter. So that is what we mostly see around here. So it's mostly just microbursts. They are not, they not really, we don't really classify them as tornadoes like most people and most of the press. We have to get these terms right, and the main reason is because we know the damage that tornadoes would do. We prefer to use in the United States, all the damage that was done in the United States. And we have to be careful in pushing out that certain things occur around here, because I don't know about you in insurance, but these things have implications when it comes to insurance. Insurance industry here, the balance of a lot of tornadoes, that suddenly my house insurance goes up. And I have a problem with that, right? I don't know about you guys, so it's careful that we don't.
Insurance in the room.
But I put all of my mind here. The problem is that we have to be careful what we push out there, all right? Because I can tell you, I ain't one of them. I have a daughter who's involved in it. The only one here, you got these things. So, here we got a reason, and here we go. Let's get it right. Microbursts is what we deal with mostly around here, not tornadoes. If we looking at tornadoes, we looking really at it. We have 0 tornado happening around here. Minimal damage, okay? Don't give these fellas no bright ideas. So they're not bad, we do not recognize them as tornadoes, but they can cause some serious damage nevertheless. But the thing is that whereas a tornado would really can rip for several miles down the road, the microbursts are confined to a rather small area. The wind speed could get a rather strong 150 miles per hour. Now, what caused these tornadoes? These are mostly summer events. We still see them every now and again. We can see them within a strong front system. If they have that kind of activity, sufficient energy in that system, you can see it there. But then during the winter months, we see the fronts every other week. In the high season, every week, possibly. And then you can also, they are also famous, and you see a lot of things going on in the middle of hurricanes, especially in the wall of a hurricane when it passes through. So we have this mid level, which is around about 15,000 feet or so, dry air coming into the cloud, feeding into the cloud. And then you can have some cooling below the cloud base. And sometimes you also see when the base is actually above the freezing level. So these are, when we see these things going up, we have things that we look at in the forecast office when we're dealing with these things. We have the T5 grams, so we call them. And what it does is, the balloon, we send up all of that every day. The balloon actually gives us a vertical picture of the atmosphere, like how, so it gives us information like how high is your freezing level, in other words, where you reach that 0 degree temperature, what the moisture is like, and what the temperature and the dew point is like. So we get the temperature and the dew point, and then we do those little things, we figure it out like that. Once you get into it, it becomes rather simple. And also the existence of rain or hail within the the thunderstorm. That is, you know, you get the rain and hail and all of that out of the cloud, but sometimes when those clouds become kind of heavy and laden with these things, and that is what really is the problem, because then you get that sudden drop, like it's like, you know, pressure builds up and everything just drop. So those are the things that could create. So when we see these thunderstorms, we know when we're going to get a lot of thunder activities, depending on what we see going on in the atmosphere. From early in the morning, we can get an idea what's going to transpire later on in the day, once we get our sounding of the atmosphere. So this is what it looks like. Like a foul.
No, I think you misimpressed it.
Press to go back.
Hold it. Look at what you're pressing. I think you're pressing the back button by mistake. Press the forward.
Oh.
You got it. Oh.
Come on.
Come on.
Got it. Anyway,
Too far now?
Go back. Right.
Okay, all right. Got it now.
Okay. So here you have your cloud hanging over, and now you have this sudden burst. So what happens is that you have a light on this.
Yeah, you see the little red.
The little red one. Okay.
Can you show up on it? No.
Yeah, that's right there. So now you have the sudden burst from the clouds coming down. So this is something like about a mile and a half, 3/4 miles. Something, you know, it can vary in size as it comes out. Once it's hit the ground, it then spreads out. Okay. Now this is where you're going to get most of the damage occurring in areas like here and areas in there. So you have, and actually this is not, now remember this is a cross section. So this is everywhere around where this drop, it's going to be experiencing this gust of wind here. This could be up to, you know, like 60, well, it's when you have 60 to 90 knots, which is about the time. And of course, the diameter 2 to 2.5 miles in area. So sometimes you'll see like, so it's not unusual when we would have these things happening. Someone down the road got damaged, and then someone all the way on the other side got damaged, and someone over there got some damage, because that's the way these things work. It isn't like, and you will wonder, but how come he got it and I didn't get it here, but he got it over there? And that's because you actually probably would have been in the center here, and then it just push out, and your damage will occur on the outside, on the circumference of that circle as you go around. So this is what we see going on around here a lot.
One question. So it does not move?
No, it doesn't move. What it does is actually drop, spread out. It push things, it actually push things out as it spread out. And so what you will see here is your damage from these. But when you go from here, you will see things laying out in this direction, laying out from the center. So when you see the trees that falling, and you notice that all the trees will be falling basically in the same direction. That's when you know you have a down voice, because it actually, when it fell and then just push everything like out of its way as it goes through. But like I said, and this is the reason why we ask people to be very careful. These can be fatal if you're in the wrong position, if you're in the wrong place, when these things actually push down. So you notice, you know, the roots torn off in some areas, trees and all of that, and you notice that it's not really something that is compacted together. You have it like in isolated places around. And that's because what will happen is that you are actually on the circumference of this circle as it push out. And this can push out up to about 2.5 miles and going out. Okay, so this is what we actually done. This is mostly what we see going on in this around us. So you have the different types. You have the wet ones, which is from the mid-air and actually on precipitation. So that means while it's going on, you're getting a lot of rain, a lot of precipitation going on. And then the dry ones we've seen also a lot of around here. So you're cooling the cloud base, and you're above the freezing level. And so you have a very little precipitation going on, and then you have something that can be at what we call a hybrid, that can actually be a combination of any one of these along with any one of these. So that's what you call it. So what do you see? So how do you recognize these? You have the blowing dust levels and gust fronts going along them. Now what a lot of people have seen, I've seen some pictures, videos even on YouTube of some that actually occurred here. And they see these, these what you call dust devils, they're actually on outside of it. And when that push out, it actually caused these dust devils. So you see a lot of dust flying up around. And that is the clear sign right there that you're actually dealing with a microburst and not a tornado. Okay, they see the dust out there spinning around, and they see the spinning motion going on. They say, "Oh, that's not a tornado. You just got away with murder, right?" Right. And so these are the signs and the things that you would actually see going on. Of course, you have thunderstorms in the vicinity with rain, or what we call Virgo. What is Virgo? That's just a term. It's really rain. You can actually see it coming from the ground, but it's not that. It's a rain coming from the ground, and what it does is that it actually evaporates before it reaches the ground. So you see it coming from the cloud base coming in. So all these things are your signs that you actually experience a microburst. So when you see those little dust devils spinning around and carrying on, that's a clear sign that you just saw. And what you see spinning around is not a tornado, that's a dust devil. That's actually the result from a microburst. Okay? So these are the things we have to be very careful about. What else have this? Oh, aviation. This is where this becomes a problem. It's a major problem. They can actually take down even jets. Case in point, these are two cases in point: Eastern Airlines Flight 75 and the Delta Airline. I think this one, I remember this one clearly because I was actually working this afternoon, and this afternoon. Yeah, this was actually in, I think, Dallas, I think it was, right? This particular Delta flight. And it was, everyone was, it was a fatal flight. So we saw a lot of these things happening around this time period during the 70s and the 80s, all of that. So we realized that, with the aviation industry at such threat and at such risk from these things, and we realized that they can actually cause this kind of incident. That's when we developed what we call a low-level wind shear system. We have one here now to put into operation, full course operation at the NASA, the LPIA. And these are systems that are actually used they consist of, how many hours here? 8 hours in. We line them up in a certain area around the runway, about a mile or so out. If you would, two of them you would see. I don't know if when you take that side road to the airport heading to Coral Harbor, you'll see one as soon as just before you get to Jet Center. You'll see one on the curve. Where we have that tower, we have one there, and then as you go past the Defense Force base near the airport, you see another one there. Those are really towers we have to set them up strategically around the runway, and they communicate with each other's, and that's a part of our low-level wind shear system. The reason for them is actually to detect these kind of things when they're happening. And of course, the message is immediately relayed to the air traffic controllers, who would then say to the pilots coming in, "Hey guys, we have some issues around here. There's a possible microburst to occur. So we need to be careful." And to show you how common these microbursts are, they're actually 10 times more common than tornadoes. They're very common. Okay. Especially around it could be even more than 10 for the United States, where they actually see a lot of tornadoes. Still, the microburst is more than 10 times more common. So I just have at the end here a picture to show you this is what happens with an aircraft being caught up in a microburst. So what you have is this gust of air coming down. So you have this guy, he's cruising in and he's on his landing path. And when if he gets caught at the end of the microburst, that's when now you have to be pushing up and then pushing up. So what happens is that instead of him continuing on his glide path, he gets pushed up. Okay. So his nose now gets pushed up. So what happens is that the land on his runway there, but now he gets pushed up, so it puts him in a position that he would overshoot this runway. But as he continue on, he get caught up in the downward path. So now he got set up, and then suddenly he gets pushed down from this downwards coming here. So now you see here, he's now in the middle of the strong winds coming down, and his nose get pushed down, and then he end up, there's his runway, and he end up falling short of the runway. And that is what happened in most, as the way these actually happen. So this is really, you know, of course you can get caught in these at any time. If you just happen to get caught here, the wind just start to come down while it's still on your path, you then still get pushed down into the ground. And when that happens, there's no control. They can't really. This is an incident that a pilot cannot control. And depending on how strong this microburst is, will determine whether or not he was surviving. Of course, those two incidents, they would have gotten caught up in some really strong downbursts, and it created microbursts.
The same thing apply at sea? Could this happen at sea?
Yeah, it can happen at sea also.
Same thing apply?
Yeah, same thing apply, right? So now, but the thing is that, you know, well, the thing a bit at sea, you would actually be at a much higher level. So even if you get a push down, right, you could probably get out of it in time to get your nose back up and land. But remember, this guy, he's on his final approach. And this is where it becomes dangerous. That's the reason why we put these around the airports. When he's on his, usually your final approach, you about here, what, 1,000 feet or thereabouts coming in. But at sea, you would probably be several thousand feet or so, which would maybe even put you above the base of, well, not above the base, but pretty more near the base. And so you would just ride around it. I don't think a very wise pilot would want to be on that sea and try to fly under one of these. He tried to just go around. Okay, so but this guy, he's actually on his final approach, which means he's extremely low. So once he gets that pushed down, he don't have much place to go. Any place that for him to go is to the ground. He don't have time to get his gears back on. So it can be fatal. So that's the other presentation.
Oh, wow. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. Don't go, Mr. Simmons. Please stay. Do you have any questions for Mr. Simmons? I'm sure we must. First of all, let me ask a question, Mr. Simmons. You said something right at the end just now that. No, it's correct. The aircraft would be at the high.
Yeah, so if they no, the aircraft, if they, like Captain was asking me about what effects they would have on a plane that is flying overseas. Now with ships, you know, just gotta live down, boys. So the ship can depend on the size of the ship. Okay, you can handle it. Okay, you're too small.
Okay, good. Any other questions for Mr. Simmons? Is there
Yes.
anything online?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, go ahead. We have something online.
Yes, I have a comment. I was going to ask a question about the ideal conditions for droplets that occurred that he referred to with microbursts, with these small little snowballs coming out of the air, right?
Hail.
Yeah, yes, he hailed, yes. But my point is that you explained it very, very well in one of your slides when you refer to it as precipitation loading. As an experience, I was working in West End and I'm leaving the 8 Mile Rock area, moving into Holmes's Rock. And I noticed up ahead, the winds became much stronger, but also it became very dark. The sky was so dark, visibility was basically zero. And I had to park on the side of the road. And I called the office just to say that I'm going to be delayed because of the conditions. And then shortly thereafter, my vehicle began to be pelted with these hailstones. And within a relatively short time, it wasn't very long, then they just stopped and cleared up. So it was my first, I guess, and only time experiencing that, but it was quite amazing. I had no idea what was going to happen. But I just thought that I would share that, yes.
Yeah, it's not uncommon that we get hailstones, little small ones, not so big. And that actually, you know, when we during the summer months, especially when you see those dark clouds, they can be loaded with hailstones also. So be careful for them. Also, that is something that we see every now and again throughout our islands here, and especially in the northern islands, like Grand Baham and Abaco. You see them quite more often than you see them here or the more southern islands.
But what was amazing though was the visibility. I'd never seen that before. It was.
Well, what happened is that your sun is completely blocked out, and those clouds are really thick and dense, so they would, you know, cover everything out. The visibility could be, you know, because the darkness would be because the cloud is there, and of course, if the precipitation coming out of the cloud is heavy, you know, that precipitation will always reduce your visibility, especially if it's heavy. So if you're gonna have a lot of rain and hail, then your visibility could go down to zero in a hurry.
Yes. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Question online. Darren Reed is asking, is it possible to prepare for these hailstorms as they are infrequent?
Unfortunately, not. That's the reason why we put out and we started doing a lot of it, and because we was just discussing this week on how we could make these things, get it out to the general public easier, or get it out more to them. But we've been actively over the past several years putting out these severe weather warnings for certain areas. So what we asking people, you know, if you're in a particular area and we put out a severe weather warning, that area, you need to start watching out for these type clouds. When you see these clouds are building, getting thick and dark and heavy over you, there's a possibility that you are in danger. So you need to, you know, and don't forget, it's not only these downbursts, we're also talking about lightning storms, which is again something that's evil. So you have to be careful when you see it. We put out some things, we warning people, you know, summertime, we know we like the beach. Be careful out there, the water's going to see these clouds are getting heavy and dark and coming at you. It may not be a bad idea to get out of the water, because not only from these downbursts, you also become a lightning rod. Okay, so even on the golf course, you're playing golf, maybe you want to park it up and tee off at a later time. But you only get to one of the holes, come back later. Right? Good. So these are the warnings you try to put on people to be careful of these things. When you see these things happen around you, now you have to be more vigilant as to what's going on and not get caught off. Okay. No, we don't. We didn't keep any sticks, but we know, because we did hear about it from time to time. You know, there's several persons, you know, what have actually got struck and killed by lightning. One of the worst cases I know of was actually a pilot got struck and killed on the runway. And the ironic thing about it is that he was walking out his plane. And the ironic thing about it is that he was on his way to his plane to get to Dodi Luchu to pick up a body that got killed by lightning strike. and you know, but the airport out of there on the runway, the air is careful of these large empty flat areas. All right, that's why we tell people get out of the waters. Your golf course, you know, you all don't allow no trees on the golf course like that. You all want nice smooth green grass, right? Yeah. Well, that's why you have to be more vigilant with these things, right? And really, you know, because when you see these clouds beginning to build up around you, right, you need to take precaution. You need to be very careful. These things can be fatal.
People make glass and stuff
Make glass?
Yeah, like.
Oh, yes. So, right. So, because lightning strikes is called as point. And so if you have something sticking up around you, then the likelihood will probably get that enough. That's probably what they were doing, but I wouldn't trust that.
Inviting,
Listen here,
inviting the
listen
strikes.
here, a lightning bolt carries sufficient energy to run this island for 2 days or more. You don't want that passing through your body. So, huh?
I think we got one more question in the back.
That's what-
Because I noticed like all of the sea green trees, all this way down.
Right,
It
so-
wasn't spin around.
Mhm.
How often have you seen the lightning, not the lightning, sorry, the microburst in your time at the Met Office?
Seen a lot of them, several of them.
In
just
the
about-
Bahamas, that is.
Yes, several of them just about every summer. We would get reports of them. Every summer, you hear about these things going on, getting damaged, and there's a lot of them. One we had just the other day in, that was Captain up in the Blue Hill areas. That was last year before, something like that. And then there was one the other day around the airport where we had actually a plane on the Bahamas airplane. I think it's damaged on the runway there. And then we heard about the airport there, and then we heard about further away from that, further over in the area there, going into Sandy Port area, like. So that was because the damage would have happened in those as it spread out. So it happened over here, it happened over there. And they say, oh, well, it hit there, then they pick up and they went there. No, it did not. That was one thing that actually went down, spread out, and hit those different areas. Did not walk.
Bounce.
All right. So it was the same event. And that is the way it happens. Okay?
Good. Any other questions? No? All right, well, then, Mr. Simmons, thank you very much for your
My pleasure.
presentation. Let's give Mr. Simmons a round of applause, please. PP Chantel is 1:45, and we're supposed to be getting to the closing at 1:50.
It's not reactive,
Can you hear me?
it's proactive. We have been preparing for disasters, I mean, in years in advance. And after one particular disaster, we prepare for the others. Our committee consists of volunteers, persons who give up of their time to better their community. And it's always a team effort. We anticipate that we will continue because, like I said earlier, the needs are insurmountable, and we want to continue to try to restore the lives of our Grand Bahamians and get them back to some form of normalcy. What we were able to do in 3 years, we're very, very proud. Okay, when you talk about rebuilding, I mean, in building from scratch, about approximately 17 homes from scratch. I think we did over 1,000 renovations, mucking and gutting. Just when the flood came in, we were able to strip out all of the sheetrock and get rid of all the mold remediation. And then we went from there, just repairing rooftops, putting up sheetrock left, right, and center, tiles on the floor, from baseboards to columns. You know, we've done it all, and we plan to continue in that vein. Just think of that, picture that, 120 boats being repaired. And we were able to assist all of those fishermen get back to work. So we were happy that we would be able to be on the ground and start the restoration process.
Is it? Good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have drawn close to the end of our webinar today. I'm sure you will agree with me that this has been a day that's been chock full of information, useful and beneficial, and something that I'm sure we would most definitely like to see happen once again for us. I'm just dropping some hints to our disaster team, you know, especially for us to look to ignite this program at the beginning of the storm season next time. So which means that before the Rotary year is over, we're looking forward to another one of these coming up. Okay, fantastic, good. So to wrap up and give us our vote of thanks, we would like to invite President Leah Lowe from the Rotary Club of Southeast Nassau, the great club. I am not going to be accused of that. Yeah.
Oh, the little one. Yes,
Yeah.
this is Rotary Club of Southeast Nassau's newest little baby.
Little baby.
It's not my baby, it's just Gaudy's favorite girl, so she's hanging out with Gaudy today. I just want to say thank you to, first of all, everybody that has taken so much time to put this event on. I know that it's been quite a while in the making, organizing. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of people that are working in this room, especially those of you online. You cannot see the people that are working in this room who are making this happen, who me and Cassidy been here pointing and saying, what's that? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? So just thank you to everyone that's here. And of course, to our presenters who are in the room. Thank you so much. As a Rotarian, it's wonderful to see that we have experts in the fields like this that affect us all, who are interested and willing to continuously partner with us. You have the expertise, we have the willingness and the bodies to get out there and work. So we're very happy to just continue with this partnership. Like past President Lionel said, we want to do this again before hurricane season would be ideal, I think. And thank you to those who have journeyed with us online. You didn't get to see the technical difficulties because we bad like that. We can fix it without y'all seeing, but we're all very engaged, and I can see the screen is full. I can see that you are all here, and I hope that we can all just take, even if it's just one thing from what was shared here today, so that we can just be better stewards of the environment through the weather, and so that we can make sure that we have years for future Rotarians to actually have islands and homes to live on and enjoy. So Cassidy, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, everyone.
Great. So that does bring us to a conclusion. Thank you all for your participation, those in attendance physically and those in attendance virtually. Thank you for your attendance and your participation. And we look forward to seeing you again to Rotary around the world.
We are the oldest club in the Bahamas.